Chapter 401. Brotherly Love and Sisterly Respect. Kingdom had no idea that her younger brother and sister were secretly scheming over next year's allowance. After arranging for the coach, Anna returned to the apartment and took out William and Melanie, who were glaring at each other. "Where's Big Brother?" After glancing around the doorway and not seeing any sign of Leon, Melanie couldn't help but ask curiously, "Where's Big Brother? Isn't he coming with us?" "He went to pick up the gift," Anna replied casually as she picked up Melanie by the armpits and placed her on the carriage while reaching out to lift William. "Your sister Ellie isn't in great health and didn't go to school. She rarely goes out, so Big Brother wanted to give her a memorable birthday. He ordered some special gifts for her. But because time was tight, even after paying extra, they were only going to be ready this morning. So, Big Brother got up early to pick up the gifts, and he'll meet us at the corner up ahead." "Oh!" After listening to Anna's explanation, Melanie's bright eyes couldn't help but flash with envy. "How nice it must be. William and I have never received customized gifts." Refusing Anna's help, William climbed onto the carriage himself. Noticing the envy in her eyes, he patted her like a little adult and comforted her. "Don't worry. You'll get one on your birthday too. Big Brother never skimps on us. He's always given us whatever he can. He didn't throw us a big birthday before because the family was tight on money, so we had to save. But now that things are better, with Big Brother's personality, he'll definitely prepare well for our next birthday." "Yeah, that's right." Remembering how good Leon had been to her in the past, the small jealousy in Melanie's heart vanished instantly. Thinking about that poor little girl who, because of her poor health, had to stay home all the time and had no one to accompany her even for taking eggs out of bird nests. I even felt a little guilty for being jealous of such a pitiable child because of Big Brother's favoritism. Listening to their exchange from the side, Anna felt her heart suddenly soften. She couldn't help but touch William's little head, with a hint of guilt in her eyes. Actually, although they're a bit mischievous, both William and Melanie are really good kids. They remember who treats them well, know what to do and what not to do, and never do anything too outrageous. Well, that's questionable, but at least they've never gone too far first. Overall, they do okay, and my worries about them bullying before we set out were a bit unfounded. Pinching her rather full purse, Anna, feeling a bit guilty, decided to compensate her wronged brother and sister by promising, "All right then, since you've been relatively behaved lately, I'll buy each of you a gift when we get back tonight. What do you two want?" Hearing Anna's promise, not only did Melanie break into a wide smile, but even William looked surprised. Compared to the always generous Big Brother, Sister Anna was the frugal one, or to put it bluntly, she was utterly reluctant to spend money, wanting to break each copper wheel into 8 pieces. So, with the usually stingy Sister Anna being unusually generous today, they had to seize this opportunity. Plus, knowing Anna's frugal nature, they understood the total budget for the gifts was likely limited. Even though the family was better off now, 7 or 8 copper wheels would be the max, and this budget was for both of them to share. So, whoever asked for cheaper gifts would lose out. They exchanged a glance, and after spotting the lively glint in each other's eyes, their thoughts synchronized instantly. They both realized that what lay ahead was a budget battle. "I want a doll. And new shoes." Thinking rapidly, with a quicker mind and better math skills, Melanie blurted out 2 gifts totaling 5 copper wheels, taking up most of the budget in an instant. Calculating the price of these 2 gifts, Anna showed a moment of hesitation but nodded slightly upon seeing Melanie's slightly small shoes. Big Brother works hard for money. I hadn't intended to buy them expensive things. 7 or 8 copper wheels is the most. Although Melanie's taking most of it, her shoes are indeed a bit small and need replacing. If William wants toys, they can take a smaller portion. After all, boys' toys break fast. Whether it's a 5 copper wheels Clockwork Soldier or a 3 copper wheels Tin Frog, they barely last 2 months before falling apart. So it's best to save where possible. After settling whom to allocate the budget, Anna nodded slightly, agreeing to Melanie's request. All right, William, what about you? What do you want? For me. Glancing at his sister, whose eyes were full of triumph as she looked at him, William's mouth curved into a slight smile, and he smiled back calmly. Get me some books. With Melanie giving a big troubled look, William took a folded piece of rough paper from his pocket and read it unhurriedly. Sister Anna, the books I'd like include A Brief History of the Pancontinental War, Our Kingdom, How the Parliament was Established, Overview of the Armaments of Various Kingdoms. After listing a long string of book titles, he handed the paper to Anna, gracefully conceding. Although I prepared a list, I don't need them all. Just some will do. Even though these are recommended by my teacher and guaranteed to help my grades. Melanie's toys are important too. As for my grades, they won't be delayed much if improved later. So, Sister Anna, you could buy her toys first. Few. Just in time. Seeing the carriage approaching him and recognizing the passengers, Leon, standing at the entrance of Redwood Avenue, waved, and the carriage pulled over. Continue forward and stop at the entrance of Treasure Flower Manor. After instructing the coachman and handing him the travel token, Leon stepped onto the carriage. He was about to ask if they were ready but noticed the odd state of the two little ones. Though William maintained his little adult-like, serious face as always, the slightly tilted-up chin revealed his inner joy. As for Melanie beside him, she sat glumly in her seat like a defeated rooster, her little mouth pouting high. As Leon boarded the carriage, she sneakily kicked William when Anna looked away. Seeing the 6 or 7 dusty shoe prints on the side of his pants but still a victorious smile on William's face, Leon couldn't help but rub his brow in frustration. Though there's no evidence for this judgment, I can't shake the feeling that agreeing to Senior Emma's request to bring these troublemakers to Ellie's birthday celebration was a terrible decision. Chapter 402. The Secret of Treasure Flower, Part 1. In Leon's indecision, the carriage carrying Leon's family past Luca, entered Redwood Avenue, and proceeded deep inside. As the two little ones clung to the edge of the carriage window, marveling at the towering 100-meter-tall redwoods, Leon also saw Senior Emma's familiar silhouette at the entrance of Treasure Flower Manor. After taking William and Melanie off the carriage, Leon looked at Senior Emma, who was standing quietly next to the street, wearing a simple woolen skirt with hardly any decoration, holding a little girl's hand. She smiled gently at him, and Leon inexplicably felt much more at ease. Sorry, we're a bit late. Not at all, Ellie and I just came out not long ago. Seeing the two little ones on either side of Leon, curiously peering at her daughter, Emma couldn't help but chuckle and gently squeezed the little fist in her palm, which was nervously trying to clench. Ellie, say hi to Uncle Leon. After obediently nodding, the little girl, wearing a wide-brimmed child's soft hat and a matching woolen dress, timidly spoke. Hello, Uncle Leon, Aunt Anna, and you too. The little girl's voice was very pleasant, not only crisp and clear like a summer wind chime but also carried a soft, tender note, making one feel she must be a gentle child just by listening. However, compared to the soft voice, the little girl's attire was a bit hard to approach. The sleeves and hem of the woolen dress seemed intentionally lengthened, completely covering her wrists and little shoes. Even the collar, embroidered with small flowers, was turned up, firmly hiding the slightly chubby chin of a baby. Her face, mostly hidden by the wide hat brim, was further obscured by a pair of thick, light-blocking glasses, nearly concealing her fair little face. Is this child afraid of sunlight? Leon, noticing that the little girl's hand held by Senior Emma was also adorned with a pair of delicate gloves, raised an eyebrow thoughtfully, then released his hands to squat down and smiled, saying, Hello to you too, Ellie, happy birthday. Thank you, Uncle Leon. When Leon voluntarily squatted down to meet her gaze, the little girl, seemingly unaccustomed to interacting with others, instinctively retreated a step, hiding half her body behind Emma's skirt. However, hearing Leon's powerful but gentle voice, and seeing his eyes filled with kindness laced with a hint of affection, little Ellie's fear diminished considerably, and she unconsciously stepped forward again. What's this? Sensing the little hand in her palm relax, even moving slightly outward as if inviting her to get closer to Leon. A hint of surprise flickered in Emma's eyes. Ellie did not seem to reject interacting with Leon. Asterisk, trustworthy brother, bronze due to the early passing of your parents. You took on responsibilities early and are cherished deeply by your younger siblings. Asterisk. Asterisk effect when worn. During conversations with minors lower in age than you, they will easily develop trust in you, and in moments of emotional agitation, they may trigger a special state. Reveal their heart, sharing their burdens and secrets with you. Asterisk. Indeed, Senior Emma's daughter, seldom in contact with others, was naturally apprehensive of strangers, so preparing the badge in advance was the right choice. Looking into little Ellie's eyes through the lenses, and confirming most of her fear and unfamiliarity had dissipated, Leon couldn't help but smile slightly, gesturing for William and Melanie to come over and greet little sister Ellie. And with the foundation of being the trustworthy brother, and the tension and fear of meeting social photons reduced, they soon found themselves animatedly socializing with Leon's two demon lords of mayhem, and she even generously took off her glasses, letting the curious Mel. Asterisk. My guess was correct. Senior Emma's daughter had issues. Asterisk. Although the two children didn't notice, when little Ellie removed her glasses, Leon, who had been attentively observing, acutely detected that as more sunlight fell on her skin, her body grew slightly transparent. Even though the degree of change was minor, merely shifting from entirely opaque to 99.9% opaque, the ethereal and elusive sense wasn't falsifiable. She was certainly not a normal child. Asterisk. Before Ellie took off her glasses, Emma, engaged in conversation with Anna, bit her lips slightly, seeming like she wanted to intervene, but ultimately remained silent, allowing her daughter's abnormality to be exposed to Leon. Only when Ellie's soft hat tilted during their frolic, about to be directly illuminated by the sun, did she gently adjust it. Asterisk. Miss Anna, could I ask you to do me a favor? Watching her daughter, who had never been so alive, laugh and dance joyfully under the sun, Emma's gaze, half tender and half guilty, couldn't pull away even for a moment, but at last, she tried turning her head and turned to Anna, saying, Could you please look after them for me? I have something to discuss with Leon. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sister Emma, you don't have to be so polite. In front of her lifesaver, Anna certainly wouldn't refuse, and she immediately led the three playing children around the execution platform next to the redwood tree and down the main path into the Treasure Flower Manor. Emma, with something to say, lagged a step behind, walking beside Leon, who also had questions, and said softly with her head down, I'm sorry, Leon. I haven't told you about Ellie's situation before. It's all right. Shaking his head slightly, Leon answered gently, Senior Emma, besides ordering a gift for little Ellie yesterday, I also reached out to a friend at the police department, asking her to help me inquire about the Bauhinia family's residency records and some case files from back then. Therefore, I can somewhat understand your feelings. It's not that you don't want to tell me, but every time you try to bring up past events, too much resurfaces from deep within your heart, making you unable to speak. Seeing Emma with tightly pressed lips and a deeply complicated expression, Leon contemplated and firmly held her slightly cold hand, then sincerely explained, Senior Emma, I conducted this investigation not because I suspect you would harm me, but because it seemed like you and the director were keeping something from me, something distressing for you. But, unlike the director, I'm willing to respect your wishes. If you're not ready, you don't have to disclose the reason, and I will halt my investigation. But in return, I hope you can promise me that before being compelled to do something, you'll think about Ellie and be sure not to regret it. Okay. Thank you. Feeling the warmth from Leon's hand, Emma bit her lip, gently withdrew her hand, then pulled out a sharp little knife, forcefully cutting her own palm before grabbing Leon's left hand. Name: Sin of the Precious Flower, Blood, Flesh, Life, and Death. Chapter 403. The Secret of Treasure Flower, Part 2. Name: Sin of the Precious Flower, Flesh, Life, and Death. Appearance: No physical form exists only on the female human named Emma Alman. Ability: flesh sustainment, limited. Resurrection, limited. Cost: none. File: after the execution against the Bauhinia family concluded, Emma Alman, who became one of the dead, saw her daughter Ellie Alman, whom she had entrusted to her husband Leonard before the execution started, as she walked the no-return path. Discovering that the daughter she viewed as hope had been killed even before her own death, the intensely enraged Emma Alman turned on the no-return path, holding on to the bewildered soul of her daughter as they fell into the realm of the dead amidst the curses and disdain of nearly 1,000 deceased Bauhinia family members. As the rules of the realm of the dead were briefly disrupted, a massive amount of unwillingness and resentment from the souls of the Bauhinia family, whom Emma Alman shared a bloodline with and who died together, were absorbed in large quantities by Emma Alman's rampaging soul. Once the soul holding her daughter escaped the realm of the dead and awakened from her own corpse, Emma Alman, with a body stained by the blood of the Bauhinia, and a soul burdened by the curses of her kin, became one of the 2 sole inheritors of nearly 1,000 lives. Evaluation: an extremely powerful anomalous object, with virtually no usage cost for additional life, and when exhausted, will slowly replenish, meaning that unless her body is consecutively killed 666 times, she is immortal. Additionally, when holding Jewel Flowers Woe Ellie Alman, the effect of Sin of the Precious Flower will be enhanced, providing an additional capability of direct reunification after 333 soul destructions. Contamination value: 0.1. Sin of the Precious Flower and Jewel Flowers Woe. After reading the astonishing length of the file on Sin of the Precious Flower and cross-referencing it with the documents he had Isha retrieve, Leon fell into deep silence while looking at the little girl not far away who was eagerly pulling William and Melanie along, wanting to show them a bird's nest. He couldn't find any record of a 6-year-old girl named Ellie Alman in the kingdom's registry. Her name only existed in the records of the Bauhinia family rebellion, with the cause of death listed as accidental drowning. This timid and shy child, although seemingly no different from a living person, had actually been dead for 6 years. Besides the fraudulently recorded accidental death, little Ellie had no medical records, no school records, and no records of travel or sightings. Aside from some children's clothing occasionally purchased by Senior Emma, she was essentially a non-existent person, even becoming transparent in sunlight due to the lack of an original body. So, if he had guessed correctly, little Ellie's true nature, combined with the soul of the original Ellie Alman, and the unwillingness born from Senior Emma, was an anomalous object. If he were to actually reach out and touch her, the description of an anomalous object called Jewel Flowers Woe would probably pop up. Although Ellie could grow up slowly like a normal child over time, I actually knew in my heart that she wasn't the real Ellie. Watching her daughter fearfully yet excitedly attempt to climb a tree under William and Melanie's encouragement, Emma whispered tearfully, she didn't have a real physical body, could grow without eating, could rest without sleeping, and didn't even need to learn, gradually acquiring things children her age should know as she grew. Although Ellie could eat and sleep normally per my request, from the moment she suddenly learned to draw without ever really leaving the house, I understood completely. Although she had Ellie's soul, everything she demonstrated was actually a projection of my expectations for my daughter. The real Ellie was no longer here, and the current her is merely an anomalous object born from my wishes. After uncovering the fact she least wanted to admit, Emma, whose palm was bleeding, muttered with a trembling voice as if her heart bled too, "Leon, I once wanted you to do me a favor but eventually gave up. Do you remember it?" "I remember." Upon hearing this, Leon nodded, a somewhat complicated expression on his face as he said, "You wanted me to use the Black Goat's soul vision to find the location of someone for you. Was it Leonard?" "Yes." Upon hearing the name that tormented her for a whole 6 years, Emma's palms clenched suddenly, teeth grinding as she said, "Leon, let me ask you, what does the record say about the Alman family rebellion?" "The records." Recalling the content, Leon answered softly, "The Bauhinia family was in close contact with the Frost Plains country Ashido, attempting to use warfare to overthrow the royal family, exploiting their control over the main trading routes to the northern border by betraying border intelligence of Lane County, Merino County, and Welsh County, causing the outbreak of the National War 6 years ago. The Marquis of Goldfinch, Leonard, then an earl supported by the Bauhinia family, realized the gravity of noticed the Bauhinia family's movements and voluntarily reported to the royal family, forcing the Bauhinia family to hastily launch a coup. Ultimately, it's fake. After Anna and the 3 children entered the garden, a flush of blood suddenly appeared on Emma's pale face, her gentle eyes seemingly ablaze as she spoke with indescribable hatred and anger. It's all fake. We indeed were dissatisfied with the royal family's actions, but it hadn't escalated to the point of needing a coup. Even though we were in close contact with the Kingdom of Ashido, it mostly stopped at business interactions. Plus, Leonard was the one responsible for the main trade route to the northern border. Upon discovering the potential for the Kingdom of Ashido to invade, he directly concealed it and reported to the royal family, hiding it from the family. Yet, even if that was the case, he had the gall to recommend the royal family deploy troops to guard against the Alman family, and preferably take control in advance, using the frequent interactions between the Alman family and the Kingdom of Ashido as a reason. At this point, Emma took a slightly labored breath, and then through gritted teeth continued. Due to the conflict over the prohibition of sales to the Kingdom of Hyzen, our Alman family had been on poor terms with the royal family, even to the point of exchanging insults with the king in court. Upon noticing the abnormal movement of the guard army, it was impossible not to react. My father speculated that the royal family wasn't likely to act too aggressively over those conflicts and wanted to have someone investigate the royal family's actions. And given that my maternal aunt was from the royal family and my husband was Leonard, he naturally became the first choice. What happened afterward more or less aligns with what the records state. Emma, whose blood color reached her brows, clenched her fists and spoke with hatred. After hearing the so-called news Leonard brought back, my father could no longer suppress the anxiety stirred by the guard army amongst the clan members, and could only be coerced into acting hastily. Leonard, meanwhile, informed the royal family just before the coup began, leading others to detain my father and other key members of the family, and then, with her eyes seemingly reflecting the crimson of that fateful day, Emma, too distraught to continue, bit her lip with force and, looking at the silent Leon, tearfully asked, "Leon, tell me, if I were you, in this situation, what would you do?" Chapter 404. This isn't fair. Now, if I were in your place. Hearing Emma's question, Leon couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. If it were me in your place, then between him and me, one of us definitely wouldn't have survived until now. Our deep-seated hatred left no room for reconciliation. Moreover, I finally understood why even the all-powerful director couldn't do anything about your situation. Senior Emma, looking at the half-abandoned garden, where 3 children were being chased away by a returning mother bird while trying to take its eggs, Leon gently asked, "Have you not taken revenge in the past because of some related rules in the Bureau?" Emma, also watching the 3 children, slightly pursed her lips and said, "Unlike you, who joined the Purification Bureau voluntarily, we, who joined through the Amnesty Ordinance, have to undergo special word spirit restrictions. We promise not to use the anomalous objects we gained to seek revenge on our former enemies. If it weren't for the unique situation of the Virgin Branch and Olivia vouching for me, someone like me with a high potential for revenge would have been forcibly transferred and never allowed to return to my original country for life. This is one of the conditions under which various kingdoms are willing to cooperate with the Purification Bureau, providing full financial and intelligence support, and even granting temporary military authority. Even becoming a level 1 cleaner doesn't exempt you from this." "I see." After hearing Emma's explanation, Leon unconsciously furrowed his brows slightly. The reason the Purification Bureau, despite its formidable power, had set such humiliating rules wasn't hard to guess. Considering that the creation of anomalous objects was indeed mostly accompanied by extremism and pain, and that the cleaners, who were constantly exposed to the corrosion, weren't mentally stable to begin with, once they gained strong enough abilities, The possibility of them seeking revenge was nearly 100%. Take Senior Emma as an example. Without this rule, neither the royal family nor the Marquis of Golden Oriole would allow her to grow stronger in the Purification Bureau and eventually launch a counterattack. They would definitely act as soon as they discovered Emma had an anomalous object, killing her immediately. And the undying body was a rare special anomalous object. Most cleaners' bodies were only slightly more resilient than ordinary people. Without a special protective anomalous object, getting shot in the vital organs would still result in immediate death. Without this seemingly absurd rule, many potentially powerful anomalous objects and cleaners might be eliminated prematurely, leading to a drastic reduction in the Purification Bureau's available manpower. What's more, in the past, when the rules were not yet mature, there might have been numerous instances of early elimination, causing serious consequences, prompting the Purification Bureau to establish such rules to ensure its normal continuation. But conversely, while this binding rule protected many cleaners, it might also have sheltered quite a few scoundrels. Recalling the file on Sin of the Precious Flower and the record of little Ellie's accidental drowning, Leon's eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly, as if something was burning faintly in his heart. Senior Emma. Touching the cuff storing his sniper rifle, Leon couldn't help but ask, "The reason you've been practicing with a sniper rifle even though you have long-range anomalous objects, is it because you want to?" "Yes, just as you thought." Looking at her daughter, who had dirt all over her dress and grass all over her body, turning from a delicate porcelain doll into a dirty little mud monkey, but was smiling happily, Emma acknowledged with a loving look at the garden entrance, "Because of the word spirit constraint, I couldn't use anomalous objects on that person, so I specially practiced using firearms. The reason I wanted to ask for your help was to use soul vision to lock onto that person from a distance and end this once and for all, but Olivia managed to temporarily talk me out of it. I'm sorry, Leon. I shouldn't have involved you. If I had really gone through with it, then, even if you were completely unaware, you would have probably been caught up in the investigation as well." Olivia was right. At that time, I was already blinded by hatred. It's okay. After all, none of that happened. Shaking his head slightly, Leon looked at the 3 children in the garden and said softly, with a somewhat complicated expression, "Senior Emma, if you completed your revenge, what would the cost be?" "I would probably be stripped of all anomalous objects and forcibly sent into the realm of the dead," Emma said calmly. "According to the related regulations, if someone at the division chief level violates this ordinance, they can still perform 3 consecutive high-mortality cleanup tasks. For those below the division chief level, it's just execution." Division chief? Upon hearing this, Leon's expression shifted slightly, and he asked, "Have you ever thought about taking revenge after becoming a division chief to avoid immediate execution, right?" Emma said with a calm expression, "I did think about that, or rather, except for the time when I found out that Ellie wasn't my daughter, just a reflection of my wish, I've always planned on it. Although Ellie isn't truly alive, she still has my daughter's soul. I really don't want to lose her again, and I'm willing to keep enduring because of her. It's just..." Chapter 405. This Isn't Fair, Part 2. After glancing back in the direction of the manor's main building, Emma couldn't help but laugh self-deprecatingly. "I guess I'm not as good at enduring as I thought I was." Was that the crest of the golden hibiscus family? Following Emma's gaze, Leon spotted the emerald green crest of a golden cuckoo on the second-floor curtain wall, along with workers dismantling the wall with the Bauhinia family motifs, and was immediately taken aback. In theory, the golden hibiscus family and the Bauhinia family had a closely knit relationship, with intermarriages being very frequent over nearly 200 years. The golden hibiscus marquis himself had gained the right to control the northern border trade routes through such family ties. Therefore, in the current situation where nobles close to the Bauhinia were either killed or exiled, he did indeed have the right by bloodline to inherit the Treasure Flower Manor, with an inheritance rank nearly equal to Senior Emma's. But if it was true, as Senior Emma said, that the golden hibiscus family was the primary culprit for the Bauhinia family's downfall, then how could they have the audacity to move in? Moreover, isn't this practically begging to be killed? Noticing Emma's hand turning slightly cold, and the look of chilling intent filling her usually gentle eyes, Leon couldn't help but close his eyes, his scalp tingling at the audacious move by the Golden Hibiscus family. If the Golden Hibiscus family hadn't intruded, Senior Emma might have continued enduring, relying on little Ellie's presence, waiting until she became a branch director. But now, the Golden Hibiscus family seemed ready to take over completely, moving their entire family into the Bauhinia family's manor, and this truly was the enemy who destroyed one's home not only blatantly appeared before them, but also unashamedly moved into their house. Anyone would find this unbearable. If Senior Emma weren't bound by the word spirit and unable to use the anomalous object, even the cockroaches in their cupboard would have to face judgment. I can drive them out. Golden Hibiscus family occupying the manor equals Senior Emma, unable to hold back from taking revenge equals violating the regulations of the Purification Bureau equals Senior Emma facing execution. The moment this equation formed in his mind, Leon immediately suggested, Senior Emma, just endure a little longer, and I'll go find the king. No need. Before Leon could finish, Emma refused his suggestion, her expression calm as she remarked, Leon, for Ellie, I've endured for 6 whole years, but now I truly don't want to endure anymore. But you're already a level 1 cleaner. Just 1 vacancy in a branch director position. The main bureau is currently sealed off. Without a director appointment, even if there was a vacancy, I couldn't be promoted, and even if there was a vacancy, it might not even be my turn. Looking affectionately at her daughter, who was pulling Melanie's hand to show her the flowers she'd planted, Emma softly said, Moreover, to me, this manor truly holds no value. Those once beautiful past memories, when thought of the final outcome, only become painful recollections. I stayed here because Ellie couldn't leave. She could only exist in this manor full of my memories. Otherwise, I would have moved away long ago. Hearing this, Leon couldn't help but take a deep breath and, feeling slightly frustrated, emphasized, I said I can drive them out. You and Ellie can still live here. Just wait until the headquarters unseals in half a year. Leon, that's not the key issue. Squeezing Leon's clenched hands, Emma said warmly, When I first realized the Golden Hibiscus family wanted to move in, I also considered driving them out and then pretending nothing happened, continuing to wait as before. But after a day of thinking, I've come to realize there are many level 1 cleaners with strength similar to mine but more seniority. Even if there is a vacancy, it's most likely not going to be my turn for promotion. So, while it seems just a step away, to truly wait for an opportunity for revenge, it might take another 20 or 30 years or even longer. Leon, I truly can't wait any longer. Gazing at the golden cuckoo crest on the main building's curtain wall, as if making a certain resolve, Emma's eyes, shimmering like waves, settled down completely. Do you remember the only crow of death report that approached me? It was my sister's. At that time, she was a bit older than Ellie is now, but was born weak, growing very small, seemingly almost the same age as Ellie now. Turning to look at the 3 children playfully frolicking in the semi-abandoned garden, recalling the once joyous little girl running toward her from the stone path in the garden, Emma spoke with a gentle voice. My mother was often bedridden due to poor health since I was young, and my father was a very rigid and distant person, so she clung to me from a young age. Before that incident occurred, I often stayed here in this garden with her. The small greenhouse just dismantled in front of the garden was built for her at my request. It's where she loved the most. She was much more lively than Ellie usually is, very much similar to Ellie today, and also liked small birds and flowers. She enjoyed using crayons to draw colorful, though messy, pictures. Perhaps Ellie's fondness for these things comes from my longing for her. At this point, Emma fell into a brief silence, then resumed, but she's already dead, strangled before me, her corpse lying next to my mother, and in less than 2 weeks, it would have been her 10th birthday on her execution day. She was just a 9-year-old child, who never committed any wrongs, but her life halted that day, and she'll never have any future anymore. Yet the real wrongdoers can live on without remorse, parading into her home, demolishing her house, and completely erasing her existence. Even the one who truly deserves to die can continue living for another 20 or 30 years, until he grows old and senile, forgetting what he once did, only then awaiting the judgment he should have gotten. Withdrawing her gaze from the verdant crest of the golden cuckoo on the curtain wall, Emma turned to Leon beside her, her voice calm yet resolute. "This is unjust." In Leon's speechless silence, Emma withdrew her gaze, her expression serene as she said, "Perhaps I vaguely knew from the beginning that the current Ellie isn't truly Ellie, but because of clinging to this last warmth, I've used endurance as an excuse to deceive myself for 6 years and cowardly for 6 years. Now, I must do what I should have done 6 years ago. As a daughter, I must kill him for my parents. As a mother, I must kill him for drowned Ellie. As the last of the Bao Hua, I must kill him for those kinsfolk who could have avoided death." How could she be persuaded? Looking at Emma beside him, no longer filled with indignation and instead returning to calmness, Leon's heart couldn't help but feel a chill. If Senior Emma had merely been provoked by the actions of the Golden Hibiscus family, impulsively acting out of anger, he could have found a way to persuade her to hold on a little longer for Ellie's sake. But viewing Senior Emma now, after her initial anger and a day's contemplation, she had calmed and truly understood what she intended to do. It was now impossible to stop her. "What about Ellie?" Holding onto his last hope, Leon tried to remind her. "You said it yourself, Ellie will grow up. So why not wait? At least until she's a bit older. Like, Leon, you promised to respect my wishes." "Actually, I know you're right, and if there was a better option, I might indeed not need to do this. But I've waited 6 whole years and truly don't want to wait any longer." Giving a gentle smile to Leon, Emma reached out to smooth his furrowed brows, softly requesting, "Let's end this topic here. Let's temporarily forget those annoying matters and help Ellie have a birthday without regrets. Shall we?" Chapter 406. Treasure and Handkerchief _1. "Mother!" While Emma and Leon were talking, little Ellie was very considerate and didn't disturb them, only occasionally casting a longing glance in their direction. Once Emma finished her conversation and entered the garden, Ellie, unable to hold back any longer, ran over, gently tugged at Emma's skirt, and handed over something in her hand, as if presenting a treasure. "Look! Look! Were those winter holly berries?" After identifying the small orange-red fruit in front of her, Emma smiled softly, bent down, and picked a leaf off Ellie's soft cap, saying, "That's great. I thought all the holly berries in the garden had been eaten by the little animals. Where did you find them?" "Over there." Pointing to a partially cleared bush, Ellie, with a bit of sweat on her forehead and a few specks of dirt on her nose, exclaimed with bright eyes, "Sister Melanie took me in to see, and there were these red little berries, and lots of little dog footprints." "Little dog footprints?" Emma was slightly taken aback and said in confusion, "Are there dogs in the garden?" "I don't know, but there really are lots of little footprints." Little Ellie shook her head excitedly and said, "I've looked at every place in the garden so many times, but it's the first time I've known there are little dogs. William and the others are amazing. They just glanced and found footprints behind the bushes and discovered a secret path." "A secret path? Is there really a secret path in the garden?" "Really? There's really a secret path." Seeing Emma's somewhat disbelieving look, little Ellie anxiously said, "I'm not lying to you. After discovering the secret path, Melanie wanted to crawl in and take a look. Aunt Anna wouldn't let her. So William climbed a tree from the other side to trick Anna Aunt. Not that. It wasn't cheating. It's just. Understood. It was a diversionary tactic to lure Anna away. These two little rascals were even coordinating. Watching little Ellie panic and cover her mouth after accidentally spilling the beans, Leon sighed inwardly and quickly walked into the garden, circling to the front of the bushes. Sure enough, a small backside was wiggling halfway caught in a bush, with Melanie having squeezed into the so-called secret path, squirming and shouting muffledly, "It stinks! It stinks! Pull me out! Wah-ah! It stinks to death!" Ellie. Ellie, help. I just knew you two would cook up some nonsense. After pulling apart the bushes and extracting Melanie, now looking like a mud monkey, Leon couldn't help but say with a stern face, "What did you promise me yesterday?" "Forgot." "Ah? Big brother." Seeing Leon's stern face, mischievous Melanie was startled, snapping out of her delight in discovering the secret path, and awkwardly pointed behind her saying, There's a secret path, and there seemed to be something in there. I even grabbed a handful. It might be treasure." "Treasure?" Looking at Melanie's little hand offering treasure, Leon suspiciously extended his palm, but seeing her eager expression, he let her place the so-called treasure in his hand. Dark brown, quite hard, slightly flat cylindrical shape, about a centimeter in diameter, and smelled a bit pungent. "This seems like badger tracks." Having followed holding her daughter, Emma pointed at the footprints on the ground with some amusement. "The prints on the ground don't look like dog paws. They have 5 toes, and the front paws seem larger than the back ones, similar to a badger's footprint characteristics, so what they found should be a badger's den, not a secret path. As for the treasure in your hand, do you want to wipe your hand?" A treasure dug out from a badger's den. Isn't that just dried poop? Hearing Emma's judgment, Leon's hand shook and he quickly flung away the dried poop pellets, his face darkening several shades. Little Ellie, upon finding the berries, eagerly brought them to Emma, while Melanie, after crawling out of the dog hole, gifted her big brother a handful of badger poop. This contrast was truly stark. As Leon glared at Melanie, who got him into trouble, while scrubbing his hand with a handkerchief, Anna, who had been diverted, arrived from the opposite side with William, slightly out of breath. "I knew it. You two are definitely up to something." Seeing Melanie covered in dirt, Anna, accustomed to mentally sparring with her siblings, instantly realized she had been tricked. She grabbed William by the ear, gritting her teeth, and said to the embarrassed Melanie, "The gifts I promised you two are cancelled. Next week's allowance is also going to be deducted." "Wow. No." Although Melanie had guessed the gifts might be cancelled, she hadn't expected the allowance would be deducted too, so she quickly looked towards her caring big brother, batting her big doe eyes, hoping someone would come to her aid. But alas, "There's no use looking at me." Recalling the feel of those dry poop pellets, Leon resolutely said, "The allowance must be deducted, and not just that, you have to wash the dirty clothes yourself today. You can't ask Anna for help." Wah-ah-ah. After the small storm stirred up by the secret path treasure, Leon's family was invited by Emma into the small wooden cottage on the side of the garden. Once the dust was patted off the 3 children's clothes, Emma pulled out 2 slightly damp towels, handing one to Anna, then gently held little Ellie in her arms and began to wipe her face tenderly. Meanwhile, Anna pinched her mischievous sister's cheek with her left hand and vigorously scrubbed with the wet towel in her right, as if giving a bath. Gently. It hurts. Bear with it if it hurts. I can't be gentle. But if it's like how little Ellie is being wiped, that'd be fine." "No way." With the towel, Anna scrubbed Melanie's forehead hard, making her little head red all over, saying angrily, "Ellie just has a bit of loose dirt on her face, but your sweat and dirt have turned into mud. How can I wipe it off without some effort?" "But it hurts." Blocking the assault on her face, Melanie half pleaded with hope. "How about you wipe William's face first? I can wait until Aunt Emma is done." "Endure it." "Oh. Humph. My foolish sister." Seeing Melanie even at such a moment trying to drag him into the mess, William, whose face was equally filthy, glared at her with disdain, then crossed his arms and smirked, feeling a sense of superior intelligence. Although it felt uncomfortable with mud smeared on the face, since Anna was fuming, the first to have their face wiped would surely suffer. So, he purposely stepped back slightly, letting her be the first, waiting until Anna's anger was spent before. "William, come." Watching his sister and Emma tend to the kids while his hands were idle, Leon felt slightly awkward, so he pulled out a handkerchief from the mirror world, gestured for William and said, "Don't wait for Anna. I'll help you wipe your face. Big brother?" Hearing Leon's call, William thought for a moment. Having Big Brother do it might not be so bad, so he nodded and walked over with a cool demeanor, tilting his little face up towards Leon. "Ugh! Big Brother, your handkerchief smells a little stinky." Chapter 407. Gift and Return Gift. The handkerchief smells a bit? Hearing his younger brother's muffled voice under the cloth covering his face, Leon suddenly remembered that the handkerchief, which he had just used to wipe the treasure Melanie discovered, might not smell so great. Hastily, he pulled it away and used his sleeve to vigorously rub William's face, chuckling awkwardly and deflecting. "Maybe it wasn't wet enough, I'll go wash it first. Senior Emma, where's the water?" "I'll do it." After shooting Leon a slightly reproachful look, Emma, who had finished wiping her daughter's face, did not reveal the secret of Leon's handkerchief. Instead, she beckoned to William, used the clean part of the cloth, and gently began to wipe his face again. With the strong bodily control of the cleaner, Emma's movements, although tender and gentle, seemed to effortlessly remove the dirt from William's face with the naked eye. Witnessing this, Melanie, who was enduring the torture in agony, couldn't help but protest again. "Sister Anna, see, you don't have to be so rough. How about you either sit quietly or I deduct your pocket money for the week after next as well? Your choice." "Oh." As Anna brutally quashed Melanie's rebellion, the newly restored porcelain doll-like Ellie curiously approached Leon, examining this mysteriously endearing uncle. "What's the matter?" Although he knew that little Ellie wasn't truly a child but an anomalous object born from Senior Emma's longing for her daughter, Leon couldn't help but feel a surge of affection as he looked at the timid little girl trying to move closer to him. Squatting slightly to level his eyes with little Ellie, Leon smiled and asked, "Did you want to tell me something?" Still unaccustomed to conversing with people older than herself, Ellie timidly blinked and glanced back at Emma. Encouraged by Emma's look, she mustered the courage to say, I drew a picture a few days ago. It's of you, and I wanted to give it to you." "She drew a picture of me?" Hearing little Ellie's words, Leon couldn't help but be slightly taken aback, then felt a warm sensation in his heart as he nodded appreciatively, smiling and responding, "Thank you. Where is the drawing?" "It's in my room." Seeing that Leon didn't refuse, little Ellie breathed a sigh of relief, then nervously fiddled with the hem of her skirt with her small hands, hesitantly asking, "If it doesn't look very good, would you still accept it?" "Of course I would." Observing Ellie, who seemed so different from his own two mischief-makers at home and was so well-behaved it made his heart ache, Leon couldn't resist gently patting her head through the wide-brimmed soft hat. Then, getting up, he took her gloved little hand and made a courteous gesture. "Miss Ellie, would you be willing to take me to see your artwork?" "I am." Upon receiving Leon's positive response, little Ellie immediately broke into a big smile. Under Emma's gentle gaze, she led Leon inside and handed him a slightly crumpled piece of drawing paper. The drawing, done in a naive style, featured a large rectangular frame that slightly resembled a toppled-over coffin with a large dark hole at the top. In front of the frame, a mishmash of colors, reminiscent of paint factory waste, was spread out. 3 stick-like figures connected by lines floated above these dizzyingly colorful blocks, seemingly engaged in an evil ritual around a round, fiery object. "So, where am I?" Not daring to admit he didn't quite understand the piece, Leon bravely pointed to the only element he could identify and complimented, "Not bad, very bold color usage and an avant-garde style. Are those flames?" "They're candles." "Candles, really?" Upon getting the hint, Leon secretly breathed a sigh of relief and continued guessing with the information. Could this large round object, resembling a barrel of fuel with a horizontal stripe in the middle, be a birthday cake? Are those stick figures people holding hands? And those colorful blocks beneath their feet, are they the garden? Is the toppled-over coffin a small wooden house? So, The true meaning of this painting is that people celebrating her birthday are dancing hand in hand around a birthday cake in the garden. It looks a little off. I'll fix it. Glancing up at Leon and then down at the stick figures in the drawing, little Ellie's face turned slightly red. She quickly took back the drawing, put a black coat on one figure, and placed 2 dots where the face would be, drawing a short downward curved line for a mouth. After modifying Leon's image, she decided to go all out. Gripping a crayon, she drew a tree in the garden, added a small stick figure on the tree reaching for a bird's nest, and placed a larger stick figure under the tree with hands on its hips, angrily looking up. On the other side of the tree, in what appeared to be a bush, she drew a small stick figure with half its body diving into the bush, wiggling its backside furiously, capturing the entire stick figure family, capturing Leon's whole family in the drawing. It looks a little better now. After drawing some small black dots next to Melanie to imply the precious treasure she found in the secret passage, little Ellie finally sighed in relief after completing her second creation. With a flushed face, she handed the very abstract-looking drawing to Leon. "For you, thank you for coming to celebrate my birthday. You're welcome." With the corners of his mouth twitching slightly, Leon earnestly accepted the stylized piece of avant-garde art titled "Tentacle Monster Ravages the Waste River." Putting it away, he then crouched down and smiled as he said, "I really like your gift, and I happen to have a birthday present for you too." "Really?" Hearing Leon's words, little Ellie asked with eyes full of surprise, "What kind of gift?" "It's not time yet." Feigning a mysterious smile, Leon didn't bring out the overnight custom-made fireworks but instead asked, "Ellie, before I give the gift, could you take off your gloves and shake hands with me?" "Shake hands?" Hearing Leon's words, little Ellie hesitated slightly, then timidly nodded, taking off the gloves meant to block out the sun and placing her small hand into Leon's palm. Name: Jewel Flowers. Woe, Soul, Life and Death, Reflection. Appearance: a well-behaved girl who, although can grow normally, can only appear near the Treasure Flower Manor. Temporarily turns transparent with excessive sun exposure. Ability: Soul Stabilization, Limited. Resurrection, Limited. Wish Reflection, Region Restricted. Cost: none. File: after realizing the execution of the Bauhinia family was inevitable, to save her daughter, Emma Alman used the location of the Bauhinia family's secret vault as a price to demand protection from Leonard Cucco for her daughter. To obtain the Bauhinia family's amassed wealth, Leonard Cucco agreed to the deal. However, after confirming the vault location was accurate, and fearing the king's disfavor for sheltering the Bauhinia remnants, he directly broke the promise, personally drowning the less than 1-year-old Ellie Alman in the lake. When the naive soul returned to the world with her mother, the bodiless Ellie Alman could not revive and was on the verge of dissipating under the sunlight. To keep her last family member, Emma Alman's strong wishes actively partitioned part of the sin of the precious flower's power, combining the souls dispersed after the deaths of a large number of blood-related kin, creating this special anomalous object only usable within the Treasure Flower Manor. Evaluation: when together with sin of the precious flower Emma Alman, it should have gained the ability to regrow and repair from physical deaths 666 times. However, due to its missing original body, this trait has never been able to activate. Contamination value: 0.1. As I suspected, but even better than I thought. After reading little Ellie's description, Leon couldn't help but smile. The shiny button on his cuff glimmered slightly, and a small children's firework appeared in Ellie's palm. Next, the desired Dream Invader, handcrafted by the third-generation director, activated, and a dreamlike flame quietly appeared, igniting the petal-like small colored paper at the firework's end, causing a small burst of splendid fireworks to spray from the gaps. Wow! The real gift might not arrive today, so I'll give you this for now. Holding Ellie's tiny hand, teaching her to use the end spark of the firework to trace circles in the air, Leon looked at the delighted little Ellie before him and extended his right pinky finger to her, smiling warmly as he said, "If Ellie can do me a favor, And when you blow the cake candles tonight, wish for Senior Emma to stay home with you all day tomorrow. Then I'll give you an even better gift. How does that sound? Chapter 408. The plan comes together. Thank you, Leon. Emma lovingly held her daughter Ellie, whose little head was nodding off after following William and Melanie around all day. She gently rubbed her cheek against the top of Ellie's head. Ellie really liked the fireworks you gave her. This isn't just the happiest birthday she's ever had, but it's also the happiest day I've had in years. To have such a joyful ending, I guess there are no regrets. It's nothing. Ellie is a very adorable child. I really like her too. Facing Senior Emma's goodbye-like words, Leon, who had also made up his mind, didn't try to persuade her. Instead, he asked quietly with a calm expression, Senior Emma, are you ready? Even if it means being exiled to the realm of the dead by headquarters, will you go down with him? Yes. Emma glanced at Leon with guilt, then nodded slightly and said seriously, all my kin are in the realm of the dead. My father, mother, grandfather, they're all still in the city of regret. I should have gone with them 6 years ago. Now I'm just going to the place I should have gone all along. I see. Since you've decided, I won't stop you. Looking at William, who was still stubbornly eating cake yet poking his nose with the fork, and Melanie, who was already curled up in Anna's arms snoring with a wrinkled nose, Leon switched out the performance master. In a full-on act, he sighed and said goodbye with a mysterious demeanor. Senior Emma, then, goodbye. Seeing the 4 parts melancholy, 3 parts solitude, and 3 parts indescribable regret in Leon's eyes, as if he were bidding a permanent farewell to something extremely precious, Emma felt a sharp pang in her heart. Words of persuasion nearly slipped out, but the nearly 2,000 days and nights of pain and regret over the past 6 years, coupled with the hatred sharpened by remorse, successfully held her rationality in place, transforming almost spoken promises into a similarly dry and low farewell. Goodbye. After hearing her response, the last trace of hope faded from Leon's eyes. He gently nodded, then smiled bitterly and stood up from the table, taking Melanie from Anna's embrace. Anna, let's go. Okay. I'll go get the carriage. After spending the whole day together, even though Leon and Anna had avoided talking to each other, sharp-minded Anna had already sensed the strange atmosphere between her brother and sister Emma. To accommodate their emotions, she voluntarily led William out of the small log cabin early. After Emma returned her daughter to bed, gently tucked her in, and silently walked Leon out of the cabin. She wrapped her arms around Leon's waist and gave him a soft hug. Her gentle eyes filled with apology as she whispered, I won't see you off. And if only I had met you sooner. It's not too late, at least not now. Leon looked at her deeply, but he didn't reply. Instead, he waved his hand, then slowly walked down the gravel path in the garden with the snoring Melanie in his arms. Since you're awake, get down and walk on your own. Stop pretending. After walking for a while, Leon couldn't help but pause, patting Melanie's tense little bottom with annoyance. Who sleeps with their legs all tense and snores faster than they breathe? If you're going to fake it, at least do it right. Oh! After Leon exposed her act, Melanie, who was struggling to hold back her expression, relaxed her whole body. She opened her swirling eyes, glanced cautiously at Leon, then hugged his neck coquettishly and whispered shrewdly, Big brother, Aunt Emma, can we not visit Ellie anymore in the future? You're such a clever little thing. Seeing that she clearly comprehended something, perhaps even guessing that Emma was saying a permanent goodbye, Leon couldn't help but pinch her little nose, replying with irritation, What are you guessing at? Your Aunt Emma will be fine, and you can still visit Ellie when you and William aren't in school. Oh! Melanie blinked her big, watery eyes, responding skeptically, then asked curiously, Then, just now Your Aunt Emma thanked me for helping Ellie have her birthday, so she hugged me in excitement. That's all. Oh, right. At this point, Leon narrowed his eyes boss-like, then unkindly threatened, When we get back, if Anna asks, what you just heard and saw. Heard what? Melanie blinked her big eyes. I was dreaming the whole time. Dreaming that Big Brother bought me a new doll. And when I woke up, I was already in the carriage. Goodness. She's even taking this opportunity to blackmail me. Rolling his eyes at the opportunistic Melanie, Leon replied with mock annoyance. Fine, I'll buy you one. But absolutely no next time. You really are. Big Brother's the best. Melanie giggled and gave Leon a peck on the cheek. After playing all day, she couldn't help but yawn, then closed her big eyes, curling up in Leon's arms like a kitten, murmuring softly in her sleep. Chapter 409. Aunt Emma is a good person, Ellie is too, but Big Brother, you also need to take care of yourself, okay? You still have to buy me. Chew. Buy me a doll. Phew. And always take care of me in the future. No excuses allowed. As expected, even though the Performance Master's ability was powerful, its effect wasn't great on those too familiar with oneself. It was easy for them to notice the differences from the usual. Looking at his sister, who was snoring again in his arms while clutching tightly to his clothing with her little hands, Leon couldn't help but shake his head, and then he slightly curled up his lips. Yes, Big Brother guarantees it. Tap, tap, tap. Toot. Amidst the tapping of hooves and the long, sharp whistle, a carriage with its boiler puffing white steam slowly pulled over to the roadside. Number 35, Bridge Street, Happiness Apartment. After handing over the fare he had prepared to the coachman, Leon stepped onto the carriage step and laid the sleeping Melanie on the seat, then lifted William, who was leaning against his leg, onto the coach, turning around with a hint of apology. Anna, today I'll first. I know. Pulling herself onto the coach and placing the sleeping Melanie on her lap, Anna interrupted Leon, biting her lips slightly. Sister Emma is a good person, but you're my only brother. I won't stop you from doing what you want, but remember to stay safe. So you noticed too, seeing the mixed encouragement and worry in Anna's eyes, and Melanie who was frowning in her sleep in her arms. Leon felt warmth blooming in his heart and let out a thoughtful It seemed that although the Performance Master might fool an unfamiliar true god, it was always a poorly executed act easily discerned by his family, who knew him well and spent every day with him. Ha! At this moment, William, who was leaning against the seat back, tried hard to open his sleepy eyes, his little face full of confusion, and asked, What's going on? What's Big Brother going to do? But that's assuming the family isn't really dazed from sleep, or their emotional intelligence isn't lacking. Nothing. Ruffling his younger brother's tousled little head, Leon replied with a smile. Big Brother isn't going home today. I'm going to do something that if I don't do now, I'll definitely regret later. Oh, I see. Nodding his head with understanding, William tried hard to open his eyes, his little face full of serious encouragement for Leon. Go for it, Big Brother. I read in the great Emperor's biography that a real man doesn't fear before doing things and doesn't regret afterward. What a load of nonsense. Just go back to sleep. Facing the words of advice from William, who was almost too sleepy to keep track of the conversation and went off topic, Leon couldn't help but laugh and scold, then raised his hand to close the carriage door, bidding farewell to his brother and sister. After checking the time, Leon suppressed the smile on his face, walked out of Redwood Avenue, and waved at another carriage waiting by the roadside. To the municipal district, to the police department. Sure. The carriage, also waiting at the Redwood Avenue junction, had earlier seen Leon's family preparing to catch a ride. It was just a step behind, losing out to a closer carriage. Originally thinking that this fare was hopeless, it turned out the family didn't all board together, leaving one behind who intended to head to the distant municipal district at night. Quite a pleasant surprise indeed. One silver wheel for the trip. Please hop on. Accepting the silver will prepaid by Leon, the coachman, who got an unexpected big fare before getting off work, cheerfully started a conversation. Are you a civil servant at the police department? Leon, whose steps felt a bit light, boarded the carriage and nodded. Yes, I am. Heading there so late. Is it overtime? Yes, exactly. Oh dear. Having a case this late. Your work at the police department is really tough. The quite chatty coachman slightly turned his head, glancing at the calm-faced passenger whose silhouette was a bit blurred in the night, and deliberately brightened the small lamp inside the carriage, enthusiastically continuing. Speaking of cases, the Sun News recently added a special column on unsolved cases, with a female reporter named Nicole digging up all the mysterious cases over the years in the kingdom, bringing each to light and causing quite a stir. Are you heading back because of her? Yes, that's exactly it. Ahaha. She has certainly troubled you a lot. From what I've heard from other police department passengers I've driven. Toot! The sharp and long whistle sounded again, temporarily covering up the slightly noisy chatter from the coachman. The steam carriage carrying Leon pulled away from the roadside, heading towards the municipal district. Meanwhile, another Leon left by the roadside watched the him, sitting upright in the carriage returning for overtime and nodded in satisfaction. To outperform the tourist director, the third-generation director had indeed gone all out in creating the anomalous object for himself. With the materials upgraded from Holy Spirit fragments to a true God's weapon, the new main battle anomalous objects effects were fully upgraded. Compared to the Holy Spirit pendant that truly altered matter with spirit, the Nightmare Invader used the Dream Realm's power to erode reality. Although it needed a dreaming person as a bridge to exert its erosive powers on reality, the consumption was far less. Back when it was still the Holy Spirit pendant, merely briefly transforming hard stone bricks into a quagmire nearly drained Leon's strength, and could only be maintained for a very short few seconds before reverting. Now, after merely chatting with the coachman for a couple of sentences, and expending roughly 1.5 contamination value worth of power, he successfully used the coachman's soul as a bridge to pull a dream named Leon going back for overtime into reality. Only the coachman could clearly see the existence of Dream Leon, appearing to others as merely a hazy shadow, but it still genuinely existed, even getting off at the police department to work a whole night shift at the Purification Bureau until it disappeared the next day when the coachman woke up. And being the Nightmare Invader that created Dream Leon with just a few words, not only was the activation subtle, the power consumption low, and the effect duration long, but its functionality far exceeded the Holy Spirit pendant produced by Taurus Director, notwithstanding the slight decrease in maximum destructive power. The second-best forge master of anomalous objects, the third-generation director truly lived up to his reputation. Quietly giving a thumbs-up to the square-headed old man in his heart, Leon turned on his heel with a somewhat drifting gait, walking opposite the direction of the steam carriage, concentrating on how to proceed shortly. After all, while one might act out of anger, one must think thoroughly before acting, at the very least considering the consequences, or else it would be genuinely foolish. Not to mention, if the Marquis Golden Lark suddenly dropped dead, the first reaction from headquarters would definitely be to question Senior Emma, likely turning their attention to himself as well. Facing the Nightmare Invader, reformed from a true God's weapon with high hierarchy, the investigators from headquarters surely couldn't detect it. After all, if they could handle such matters, they wouldn't be mere investigators. With those internal investigators' average level, they might at most find slight shock effects on the coachman's soul, providing no concrete evidence. And these insufficient suspicions would offer wiggle room to wriggle out during any internal disputes. Plus, the me who left in the carriage and genuinely worked an entire shift at the bureau could help circumvent more basic lie detection methods. After overcoming those points, all he would need to do is hold his ground. With the trust of the director and the Taurus director, as well as the major accomplishment of exposing the Aquarius's plot and securing the Watcher's palace, he practically was protected by a halo now. If there was no solid evidence, just a few suspicions, it was highly unlikely someone would persistently pursue him. And if anyone tried to pursue him relentlessly, he planned to find a reason to retaliate, pushing them to go lick brains with the god-tier brain-eating demon. As for what reason to fabricate, wasn't it ready-made? Whoever dared to suspect him, they would clearly be an agent who had received benefits from the Aquarius director, scheming to persecute the heroes. Mission accomplished. Chapter 410. Night Raid Part 1. Late night, Western Lowther Arcade. Unlike Redwood Avenue, which was dubbed the Noble District by the residents of the capital city and is home to many old noble estates, the western region of Lowther Arcade, known as the Wealthy District, was also populated by many nobles, but rarely featured large estates. As Lowther Arcade was completed nearly 100 years after Redwood Avenue, the capital city no longer allowed land to be allocated for large estates. Additionally, most residents here were new nobility who rose through commerce, with much less political clout compared to the old nobility, resulting in a continual reduction in housing standards. Owning several luxurious and exquisitely decorated townhouses here was considered top tier within the wealthy district. If such a residence had a moderately sized garden, its owner was often an influential figure in the political scene of the capital city. However, this rule was not absolute. Even though the comprehensive construction of Lowther Arcade occurred late, it was originally not barren land. Several older noble estates were incorporated into Lowther Arcade, and the verdant feather estate of the Cuckoo family was one such inclusion. Strange, what exactly did the Marquis of Cuckoo aim to gain? As Leon stepped onto the originally white but now deep yellow paving stones, eroded by centuries of rain, arriving near the entrance of the verdant feather estate, he stared distantly at the opulent structure hidden amidst the forest foliage and couldn't help but furrow his brows slightly. Frankly, although Bao Hua Manor had a larger area, the estate before him wasn't much smaller. Moreover, the detailed engravings on the facades of the main building, the scattered marble statues in the garden, and the ornate patterns on the outer porch crafted by a master, all made the verdant feather estate far more resplendent than the simple style of Bao Hua Manor. So, have they gone mad? Abandoning their few hundred-year-old house to seize Senior Emma's estate that's been abandoned for 6 years. Filled with confusion, Leon emerged from the pitch-black night into the light outside the estate's gate, stepping into the range of the night sentry's vision, and gently opened his mouth. Meow! Who is it? Upon seeing a somewhat blurred silhouette approach, the guard on duty immediately became alert, instinctively wanting to call out his resting companion in the duty room to question the person's identity and why they would approach the verdant feather estate alone at night. However, at that moment, perhaps due to an excessive drop of oil within the lamp, the streetlight above suddenly flared up, turning the formerly soft night light glaringly bright, causing the sentry to squint involuntarily. As he tried blinking his eyes and continued to look towards the figure, he found it was not a person but a cat with something hanging around its neck. Strange. How could I have mistaken a cat for a human? The size difference is enormous. Staring at the small cat, puzzled, he scrutinized it over and over, but no matter how he looked, it was only a short-legged cat with fluffy long hair, showing no sign of transforming into a catwoman. The sentry of the Cuckoo family had no choice but to hush at it and then retreated back to his original position, puzzled. However, meow! With a cat's furious cry, the gray and white cat turned into a blur of motion and dashed right in front of the sentry, quite savagely crashing him to the ground. Did I just get knocked down by a cat? Before the stunned sentry could come to terms with this absurd situation, the small, short-legged cat used his chest as a stepping stone, leaping through the open window into the duty room. Inside the duty room, the doorman responsible for the register only managed to shriek before falling silent, and the other 2 night shift guards, after a muffled grunt, fell silent as well. Oh? Shocked by the unusual quiet from the duty room, the struggling sentry rushed over to take a look, finding himself utterly stunned at the sight. The 3 inside were already lying around in disarray. The entire duty room was dotted with tiny cat prints. The strange little cat had vanished without a trace. Yet there was a barely perceptible breathing sound coming from the back of his neck. Meow! Well done, Leon whispered, catching the blurry small cat, scratching its chin with a finger, then gently flicked the small red fork hanging from his chest. Accompanied by a dreamlike melody of pleasant chiming, the blurred gray and white cat vanished, leaving behind a key etched with a cuckoo pattern in Leon's palm. Sorry, I'm not too familiar with this thing yet, so I might have been a bit heavy-handed, but now you guys can enjoy an early clock-off. Apologizing silently to the terrified and unconscious sentry, Leon dragged him through the window into the duty room. then used the key found by the dream cat to unlock the already locked door in front of him, and boldly entered the Cuckoo family's estate. The Nightmare Invader, crafted by his third-generation grandfather using the weapon of the Lord of Lustful Dreams as the core material, had an extremely covert activation method. As long as any form of interaction occurred with him, the target's soul would be agitated, and the dream realm's power would briefly intervene in reality using his soul as a stepping stone. Chapter 411. Asterisk. As an ordinary person with no abnormalities, upon hearing his own meow, the sentinel from the Gold Oriole family fell under the control of the Nightmare Invader. Under its influence, he directly dreamed of a kitten. Asterisk. This dream cat, which invaded reality by leveraging his soul, easily knocked unconscious everyone in the duty room and left a pile of cat footprints in the house. When the main bureau sent people to investigate, if the investigator was not careful, as long as the memory of the sentinel matched, the direction of the investigation would be directly misled, or even steered towards some cat transformation anomalous object. Asterisk. Even if no result was found at the end, and it did end up back at him with this non-existent target, his suspicion would be indirectly washed away somewhat. This was his second method to elude suspicion, following the alibi provided by the coachman. Asterisk. Asterisk. And as the saying goes, where there is a first and a second, there will be a third and a fourth. As for his third backup plan, asterisk. Time to work. After fiddling with his button and bringing out the black goat, Leon pointed to the still brightly lit main building in the distance and said calmly, Asterisco come. Help me find someone. Asterisk. Crackling. Even though it was past midnight and dawn was creeping on the horizon, there were still people who had not entered deep sleep and were busy at their desks. After filling more than half a sheet of stationery with elaborate, flowery script, a tired-looking man folded the paper in half and handed it to the secretary standing by the side of the desk. Asterisk. Go, seal the letter and stamp it. Tomorrow, deliver it along with my warrant to the mining guild. Asterisk. Understood. After carefully securing the letter handed over by the man and processing it as requested, the equally weary-looking secretary straightened up and asked, Mr. Leonard, sir, after your letter is delivered, do we continue to maintain ties with the mining guild as we did last time, or? Don't bother maintaining ties, they're of no more value. After pulling another document from the pile on the desk and glancing at its signed name at the bottom, the man named Leonard frowned and said, Asterisk. Earlier, I fully supported the mining guild's request to use a tax reduction policy to entice them to mine in Merino County. Merino County's spice orchards are our Cuckoo family's biggest competitors. Asterisk. Asterisk. Since both mining and spice cultivation require a lot of water, as soon as the mines open in Merino County, they'll start competing for water with a few major spice orchards there. This will suppress our competitors and also reduce the kingdom's spice production, driving up spice prices. Asterisk. Asterisk. This was the real reason I supported the mining guild. Not because those miserable miners themselves have any value. Now that they are holding warrants and going off to mine, we need not waste more effort on them. Asterisk. Understood. Having noted down Leonard Marquis instructions, the secretary hesitated briefly before speaking with some hesitation. Asterisk. But those miners from the mining guild have already clashed several times with people from Merino County because of this matter, resulting in 70 or 80 deaths. If it escalates, asterisk. Asterisk. Then let them go to the Princess of Ashito. She is the one who encouraged the policies of the Energy Guild, so naturally, she should take responsibility. Asterisk. Asterisk. Moreover, she always wanted to bypass the Treasury and Parliament to find a source of revenue that doesn't require approval to fill the army's funding pit. These citizen-formed industrial guilds are the ones who most support her and even donated enough to arm 2 regiments. Asterisk. Asterisk. If a few more people die this time, it might awaken those ignorant fools to the fact that the game between the royal family and the treasury is not something they have the right to interfere in. It might even be a good thing. Asterisk. And who placed this letter on my desk? After skimming through the earnest petition letter, Leonard's brow furrowed tightly, and he said with displeasure, Asterisk the Weavers Guild actually submitted a petition, crying to me that they can't make a living and hope to get some tax relief. If their taxes are reduced, what about this year's municipal needs? The greenery in the church district and the arcades should have been renewed last year. If we don't collect their taxes, where will I find the money? Asterisk. Well, the Weavers Guild there is indeed having some difficulty. After flipping through the corresponding materials, the secretary cautiously reminded. Asterisk 6 years ago, after the loss, the kingdom lost 2 maritime trade routes, including the one for transporting textiles, making it difficult to sell many things. This led to the closure of several weaving workshops. Asterisk. Asterisk although the northbound land route, co-managed with that family, can still transport textiles, the kingdom of Ashido heavily taxes them, resulting in very low profits. So, they may indeed be struggling a bit. Asterisk. Why are you talking so much today? Leonard squinted slightly, a cold light in his eyes, looking at his secretary with a menacing demeanor. Did the Weavers Guild give you money? Asterisk they did, a bit, but these facts are also true. Asterisk. The secretary chuckled awkwardly, then spoke. Asterisk the Weavers Guild is made up of many small and medium workshops, which indeed can't compare with wealthy big merchants. Even a slight change can easily topple them. Asterisk. Then let them bear it. Leonard snorted and said, I don't care about you taking money, but tax reduction is absolutely out of the question. Chapter 412. Don't think I don't know. I used to be in this business too, and if you want to make money in this line of work, it's all about squeezing the weavers dry. A single weaver can do the work of 200 rolls of fabric, and you only need to pay them for 50 or 60 rolls. So instead of asking me for a tax reduction, why not just cut more water? Lower the wages to 40 rolls. They won't starve. If you can push it down to 30 rolls, that's more effective than reducing taxes twice. That's true, but on the weaver's side, I'm afraid. Then just drive out the troublemakers. Do I need to teach them this? After crumpling the tax reduction application letter from the weaving industry into a ball and tossing it into the trash can, Leonard said with impatience in his eyes, if you can't recruit people, just go to the slums and pull some in. Those people will work for a meal. They can't handle the skilled dyeing tasks, but can't they manage the simple work of moving their arms and legs? Also, don't think that just because your last name is Kuko, I will tolerate you repeatedly. No matter how many benefits they give you, this matter ends here. Not a single copper wheel of the required taxes should be missing. All right, then I'll go tell them the day after tomorrow. Go tomorrow. Also, how's it going at Treasure Flower Manor? After drinking a cup of refreshing tea from across the sea, Leonard rubbed his throbbing temples vigorously and asked with his eyes closed, hasn't it been tidied up for 4 or 5 days over there? Is the main building of the estate ready? Can it be lived in? Well, it might take another 3 or 4 days. The secretary replied awkwardly. Marquis, that place has been abandoned for 6 years. Except for the garden, which is occasionally maintained, most of the other areas are deserted, so ignore whether the estate is deserted or not. Just get the living space ready for me. But with it being so deserted, won't you living there be? It doesn't matter if it's deserted or not. As long as it can hold people and not collapse, it's fine. Stopping his hand that was rubbing his temples, Leonard explained with a weary gaze. The princess has gained the support of the Duke of Lionheart, and besides securing the military and the Department of Road Administration, she has essentially secured a vice-chairman position in the upper house. If Prince Joshua wants to compete with her for the position, just having the Minister of Finance's support isn't enough. He also needs a voice in the upper house. According to the Minister of Finance, as long as I acknowledge the marriage with that woman, he can work things out to forcibly take over the Bauhinia family's seat in the upper house. This would level the playing field for the 2 princes. Moving from Verdant Feather Estate to live in Treasure Flower Manor is the first step of this operation. Even with the Minister of Finances and the royal family's backing, my people need to be there. At least the appearance must be in place to inherit the Bauhinia family's political legacy. Got it. Got it. If you understand, then go do it. Looking at his secretary, who was nominally his but was actually there to learn how to handle affairs and waiting for a chance to be transferred elsewhere, Leonard encouraged him with the last of his patience. Other matters can be postponed, but this one was instructed by the Minister of Finance. If we manage to occupy Bao Hua's seat, even His Majesty the King will strongly support it. It must take priority. So go urge them now. Get the workers up and have them work overnight. Understood. I'll go right away. The instructed secretary quickly got up and walked out of the office in haste, while Leonard, rid of distractions, put down the teacup and resumed examining the towering stack of documents on the desk. The entire room returned to silence, with only the soft scratching of the pen on paper, until, crack! The whale oil in the lamp on the desk flickered slightly, emitting a faint sound, causing the lamp's light to flicker twice as well, startling the man busily writing at the desk. Glancing at the empty side table, Leonard frowned slightly and called out loudly, "Mark, where are you?" After waiting a while without receiving a response, not even a sound from the guards stationed outside, Leonard frowned again and stood up from the desk. "Mark, I'm here." Accompanied by a slightly muffled response, a somewhat obscured figure appeared by the door. However, the figure seemed a bit different in size, appearing slightly slimmer than the slightly overweight Mark. "Mark." Accompanied by an affirmative response, the figure stepped out from the shadow of the door, and the previously somewhat obscured figure returned to normal under the lamplight, completely stabilizing. Seeing the tense body relax again, Leonard, with eyes still filled with fatigue, gave a slight smile. The secretary, with a calm expression, said, "Sir Leonard, I've arrived." Chapter 413. After responding blandly, Leonard scrutinized his secretary, a bit suspicious as he said, "Where did you go? It was just a simple task, so why did it take you so long?" The person on duty over there fell asleep, couldn't wake him no matter what, so it took a bit longer. "I also got startled by a stray cat on the way, sorry." After vaguely answering a couple of times, Mark walked back to his desk with heavy steps, continuing to review the documents he hadn't finished. Leonard, having returned to his desk, looked at the whitening sky and suddenly felt a sore waist and back. He couldn't help but yawn and then waved his hand wearily, saying, "Stop it, let's call it a day. I need to rest. Tomorrow afternoon, we need to meet with the president of the Royal Capital Commerce Association to discuss imposing an additional monopoly tax on some major companies led by Charles Department Store. You should rest in the ear room, too, so you won't mess things up tomorrow." "Okay." Hearing Leonard's words, the secretary stood up, following him closely out of the office and into the slightly dimly lit corridor. As the two walked one after another into the corridor, under the indifferent gaze of the portraits on both sides, their shadows stretched longer by the light from behind. Mark's footsteps drew ever closer, his shadow gradually overshadowing Leonard's head, nearly engulfing him entirely. "By the way, how's that woman at Treasure Flower Manor?" Seemingly unaccustomed to the chattering secretary's silence along the way, Leonard uncomfortably took the initiative to speak. "Does she still live in the garden?" Upon hearing Leonard's inquiry, Mark's shadow paused slightly and no longer continued to stretch but instead subtly hummed, "Yes. She's still living in the small wooden house in the corner of the garden with your daughter." "Your daughter? Shut up. Don't mention that monster. She's not my daughter either." Leonard's body suddenly froze upon hearing that. He stopped in his tracks, turned his head, and said angrily, "Damn it! I clearly drowned that monster long ago, but she—" "Mark! How dare you? How dare you mention this in front of me?" "Sorry. Marquis. I'm sorry. I misspoke." Frightened awake by Leonard's sudden fury, the secretary, realizing he had misspoken, quickly slapped himself hard, snapping out of his incoherent, half-asleep state, shaking like a leaf. I might have been too tired. Marquis, Enough. Shut your mouth." After glaring at his secretary with disgust, Leonard, while considering finding an excuse to get rid of him the next day, said with cold, harsh eyes, "Considering you stayed up late with me and your mind isn't very clear, we'll let it go this time. But if I hear you mention a word about it again, don't blame me. I remember, Marquis. I remember." Letting out an angry huff, Leonard, who had opened up the topic, simply continued, "When I sent you to clean up the manor, did she see it? Did she say anything if she did?" "She probably saw it." After a slight flicker of his eyes, Mark replied, "But she didn't say anything, nor did she interfere. She just picked up the Bauhinia family crest from the trash pile in front of the main building." "I see." Heh. Leonard chuckled with a hint of disdain. "After that incident years ago, I actually saw her twice more. At that time, the way that woman looked at me was as if she were looking at a dead man, making me worry for quite a while. But now, it seems the Purification Bureau's restraints on her are stronger than I thought. She didn't even dare stand up to stop it. The last Bao Hua. That's all." "The Purification Bureau? What kind of place is that?" "It's a mysterious department under the police bureau." After glancing at his secretary, who wore a face full of curiosity, Leonard was somewhat annoyed at himself for mentioning this dangerous organization, but, upon thinking it over, still explained with a slight apprehension in his gaze, "They have some unusual abilities, capable of doing things that ordinary people can't, handling cases that are particularly peculiar. But the entry requirements are extremely stringent, and most people haven't even heard of them, or if they do, they forget soon after. I was able to know about their existence because that woman was chosen by them. So, they also put something called word spirit on me, which prevents that woman from approaching, thus preserving my memory of it." "There's actually such a mysterious organization." With eyes full of shock, the secretary replied, "Leonard, since the woman from Treasure Flower Manor could join that Purification Bureau, she must have unusual abilities as well, right?" "Yeah." Unable to resist glancing back at his somewhat strange secretary, Leonard thought that even if he knew now, he'd inexplicably forget this memory tomorrow anyway. Additionally, having bottled it up for so many years, he did want to find someone to talk to a bit, so he replied, "Though not exactly clear, I guess her ability is probably to bring people back to life." "Back to life?" "Yes, back to life. She might even desecrate the souls of the dead." Leonard nodded, then continued walking forward, fearfully narrating, "Back then the monster child you mentioned earlier, she was absolutely dead back then. Yet that crazy woman kept buying children's clothes. When I sensed something was wrong, I thought she'd gone mad. But my people sent there actually saw a little girl within the garden's bounds. I even looked with binoculars myself, and the child's eyebrows and eyes were just like that monster child from before. Mark. Can you imagine how scared I was back then? Damn it. If not for this opportunity being truly rare, and the orders of the Minister of Finance and the Queen being hard to disobey, I would never have approached that damn manor by even a step. I should be able to imagine it. Even if I can't imagine it now, I should be able to see it soon." "Oh? What the hell are you babbling about?" Hearing his secretary's bizarre response, Leonard couldn't help but turn back suddenly, with eyes full of anger, shouting loudly, "Damn it, Mark, today you really... How are you here?" "I came to see you." A crisp, pleasant child's voice, carrying a hint of cheer, replied, "I wanted to see what kind of person would drown me back then, and also..." Replacing the dream Mark, little Ellie appeared before Leonard. She smiled and then, under Leonard's utterly horrified gaze, innocently asked, "Where's my body? Where did you throw my body? Can you tell me, please?" "Oh!" Chapter 414. Ah! With a hysterical scream, Leonard suddenly woke up, drenched in sweat. His face as pale as if all his blood had been drained. His luxurious silk undergarments clung damply to his back, making him seem like he'd just been pulled from water. So it was just a dream. Struggling to escape from the nightmare, Leonard looked out the window at the already bright sky. Still shaken and nearly exhausted, he collapsed into the back of his leather chair, gasping for air like someone who had nearly drowned. It seemed he had been too tired lately, working too hard, and having just mentioned that woman had stirred up the fear inside him, leading to such a sudden dream. Additionally, the Purification Bureau member had once said that she and he both carried the word spirit, preventing them from being too close and from using strange methods against each other. So there was no need to worry about her seeking revenge. Yes, that's it. After comforting himself with a few words, Leonard turned around. His mind somewhat settled and feebly called out, "Mark! Mark! Where are you?" I'm here. Hearing his call, the secretary walked in from outside the door, holding a towel with a flattering expression. "Master Leonard, after arranging the matters at the manor and returning, I found you taking a nap, so I didn't dare to disturb you. Here's a hot towel prepared by the maid. Please, wipe your face first. Thoughtful of you." Seeing the secretary's completely normal behavior, the last bit of doubt in Leonard's heart dissipated. He raised his trembling hand, received the towel emitting warmth, and wiped the sweat off his face. Seeing his bloodless appearance, the secretary, Mark, couldn't help but inquire, "Master Leonard, did you have a nightmare?" With a feeble response, recalling the incredibly real nightmare, Leonard, whose soul felt shaken, needed someone to help dispel his fear. He couldn't help but speak nervously. "I dreamt that after we finished work, as we walked along the corridor, you chatted with me a bit, then suddenly turned into that Bauhinia family's monstrous child, asking me where her body was thrown, and then what? Then I wet my pants, but how could I say that? Then I started running, and that monstrous child was chasing me." Skipping over his embarrassed display at the moment, Leonard, his eyes filled with fear, continued, "The corridor outside our door seemed to stretch endlessly, and her footsteps kept getting closer. I almost ran myself to death, just barely making it out the other end. Yet, after falling down the stairs, outside wasn't our estate, but was that family's estate. And after being chased out by that monster all the way to the door, beneath that big red cedar tree outside, an execution was actually happening." An execution? Apparently intrigued by Leonard's strange dream, the secretary, Mark, had his eyes flickering slightly, his face lacking any expression, but his voice filled with shock as he pursued, "Could it be the one 6 years ago for that family? Yes, that one. But it was a bit off." Leonard hesitated as he spoke. The place was right, but the person being executed was who? "It was me." Recalling the horrifying scene he witnessed, Leonard's lips trembled unconsciously as he said, "Over 900 of me, blindfolded and pressed down there, then one by one, and at first I was still down below watching, but then as I watched, I was pinned down too and executed one time after another in succession." "Oh, don't panic, Master Leonard. Please don't panic." Seeing Leonard unconsciously screaming, the secretary hurriedly handed over another towel, comforting, "It's all just a dream. There's no need to dwell on it." "And what happened after that?" "Afterwards?" Still in shock, Leonard took the new towel, wiping his face that had started sweating again. It seemed the waiting time had made this new towel not only not warm but even subtly damp and cold. However, tormented by the nightmare to the point of his extremities growing cold, he couldn't care about whether the towel was warm or cold anymore, recounting in terror under the seemingly magical urging of the secretary's voice, "After the execution ended, that monstrous child appeared in the street, started smiling at me, and I ran back. This time what appeared wasn't Treasure Flower Manor, but our own Verdant Feather Estate, and that monstrous child, while leisurely chasing me, told me that if I jumped down and retrieved her body, she'd let me go." "Did you jump?" I jumped. Remembering the bone-chilling cold of that lake water, Leonard shrank into his chair, shivering as he spoke. I remember the spot very clearly, so I found it as soon as I jumped in. Then, when I wanted to come up, lake weeds suddenly tangled around me. Those cold, wet weeds seemed alive, coiling around my ankles, binding my hands, strangling my neck, and clammy against my face. You didn't come up, just like that child back then, drowning in the lake, right? Yes. I see. The secretary, Mark, pondered for a moment, then tentatively asked, could it be that you were having such dreams because the Bauhinia family treated you well, making you feel what you did years ago wasn't quite right? So, do you feel guilty? Do I feel guilty? Leonard was stunned by this, then quickly shook his head vehemently. No, I did nothing wrong. They only had that arranged marriage because they needed the Goldfinch family's support, merely a union of interests, and I barely even met that woman a few times. Besides, that child wasn't even… Damn it, Mark. What are you saying? Apologies. I was just trying to help analyze the cause of these bizarre dreams. After all, you were indeed frightened. Politely apologizing, the secretary gently reminded, seeing you sweating so profusely, perhaps you should wipe your sweat again? Hearing Mark's reminder, Leonard wiped his sweat with the towel in his hand, but somehow the more he wiped, the more sweat covered his face, and the originally slightly warm towel gradually became damp, cold, and sticky as if the aquatic plants that had just wrapped around his limbs and nose, drowning him in the lake. Apologies, preparations were a bit hurried earlier. And there's not enough hot towels. Hope you don't mind. Apologizing to Leonard, whose face turned deathly pale and lips began shivering again, the secretary Mark stood up, clearing the doorway to the corridor, then pointed to the little girl standing behind Leonard, smilingly reminding, make do with this for now because it's time for you to run again. Chapter 415. Aftermath and Royal Mail News. The Marquis of Golden Cuckoo passed away. Queen Diane attended the memorial. Commentators news, assassinated or conscience awakened. The cause of Marquis Golden Cuckoo's death remains a mystery. Daily News. Marquis Golden Cuckoo drowned in the lake yesterday. Shouted, I am guilty, before jumping. Corner Alley News. Fell to the prince less than a week ago. Suddenly died at home. Did Marquis Golden Cuckoo really commit suicide? The Sun News. Vengeful spirits revenge? The Golden Cuckoo family's sentinel. That night I was knocked out by a wild cat. It seemed all right. The response was more or less what he had anticipated. After excluding the distinctly styled The Sun News, Leon, who had worked overtime all night the day before yesterday and then had a good sleep at home yesterday, pushed open the door to enter his office at the Purification Bureau. For some unknown reason, he appeared to be in an exceptionally good mood. Leon indulgently brewed himself a cup of tea, sipping it slowly as he reviewed the remaining newspapers. The sudden drowning at home of the Marquis of Golden Cuckoo, who had just been promoted to the position of Secretary of Finance, second only in rank to the Minister of Finance, was obviously not a minor incident. After all, while the title might include secretary, the role had significant actual power, not only participating in forming economic policies, adjusting and controlling commercial taxation, but also overseeing the normal functioning of the market, acting as an external economic advisor, among other duties. This position, which might sound relatively unimportant, was already at the second highest rank in the kingdom's 5-level official system, second only to the Prime Minister and ministers of various departments. Such a key figure's mysterious drowning directly triggered a severe upheaval in the political circles of the capital city, especially those who had once supported the princess but had recently leaned toward Prince Joshua due to the machinations of the Queen and the Minister of Finance. One after another, they were seized by fear, suspecting whether this tragic event might be a warning from Princess Veronica. Even those not related to the incident were extremely curious about it. The major newspapers, knowing exactly what everyone wanted to read, naturally rushed out special issues, launching extensive reports on the death of the Marquis of Golden Cuckoo, with various theories rife for a time. And as the perpetrator of this event, in Leon's view, apart from the Sun News' great efforts to paint a terrifying picture, attempting to write the incident as the vengeful spirit of Bao Hua, the reports in other newspapers were relatively thorough. Especially the one with the largest background, Royal Mail News, which directly stationed itself at Verdant Feather Estate, inquiring the witnesses of that day, reporting everything aside from Leon's presence with great accuracy. According to the account given by Royal Mail News, the Marquis of Golden Cuckoo worked late into the night and then dozed off at his desk until morning. The secretary didn't dare disturb him, just covered him with a coat and retreated to the adjacent room to rest. But by a little after 10 in the morning, discovering that the Marquis had yet to wake and appeared unusually pale, trembling slightly, the anxious secretary could no longer hold back and woke him. Upon seeing the secretary's face, the awakened Marquis of Golden Cuckoo let out a desperate scream, shoved the secretary to the floor, then dashed through the corridor, stumbled down the stairs, shouting, "I am guilty," all the while, embraced a large rock and drowned himself in the lake. When he was finally dragged out by many hands, as if afraid of not dying quickly enough, his mouth and nose were filled with water weeds, entangled all over, yet his face did not show much of a grim expression. Rather, there was a strange hint of relief. "You truly are a genius." After hearing Leon read out the newspaper, the illiterate goat head placed on the office desk was filled with joy, laughing, calculating one lap in over a minute. He slept for more than 4 hours after you left, waking and dozing hundreds of times in the dream world you created. Each time he woke, he was chased to throw himself into the lake. Moreover, you used the secretary's face. When he woke and saw the secretary concernedly approaching, his first reaction was surely to run quickly and once more go into the lake. After all, if he ran too slowly, he would be dragged to Treasure Flower Manor and executed over 900 times. Wahahaha! Art. This is simply the art of execution. Having praised Leon extensively, yet feeling still slightly insufficient, the black goat smacked its lips in awe. "Kid, you're truly a born demon." Without even touching him, just responded at his door, then knocked on that red cross, causing him to have nightmares all night and, upon waking, go into the lake himself. Even if the people of the Purification Bureau were capable of investigating, they couldn't look into what dream a dead person once had, not to mention that when he drowned you had already gone home and slept soundly, even stayed overnight at the Bureau working overtime, writing plenty of material. Who could trace it back to you? TSK. I truly admire you more and more. Only a pity you took down just him yesterday. Were you two? Enough. If you can't keep your mouth shut, then go back to the mirror world. After glaring at the prattling black goat, Leon said in irritation, "You think the investigators at the Purification Bureau are fools? I've already done something similar with the Ryan family before. Do it once more, and even the dumbest will start suspecting me." All right, I'll shut up. Isn't it okay if I shut up? Seeing Leon raise his hand and aim at him, terrified of returning to the mirror world to be Young Ha's urinal, the black goat promptly closed its mouth. However, unable to change its bad habits, it couldn't resist speaking again after a while. "I'm just saying, your new anomalous object is truly handy. It might lack a bit against those with anomalous objects, but when dealing with ordinary people, just making a noise can almost take them down. And you have so many people you want to take down, why don't we work here at the Purification Bureau for that redhead woman during the day, and then go out more at night to do something for ourselves? What do you think?" "Not much." After carefully reviewing the newspapers and confirming that even if there were doubts, they wouldn't likely involve him, Leon responded flatly, setting aside whether doing so would be discovered by the Purification Bureau. "Given the kingdom's current situation, even if I could take down 1,000 evildoers, there would still be the 1,001st emerging. Mindless slaughter won't solve problems. If it weren't for the particularly unique circumstances this time, I wouldn't have acted directly even knowing. I'd find a way to catch his slip-up and have him dealt with through the Ministry of Police or the Princess." Upon hearing this, the black goat seemed greatly disappointed, pouting discontentedly. "Teske. Truly not straightforward." Having listened to the black goat's complaint, Leon sneered. "Hehe, if you were anomalous object number 001, Then I'd straightforwardly deal with all the bastards and make everyone follow my rules. But are you? I have great potential as long as I retrieve what I've lost, at least as great as a... Oh yes. Stuttering for a moment, the black goat seemed to recall something, its sheep eyes glinting slightly as it said, "That female reporter from the Sun News. My tail is still with her. Now you're already so powerful. Let's quickly find her. As long as we snatch back my tail." Hush! Silence! Hearing familiar footsteps, Leon clapped a hand over the black goat's mouth, squeezing its babble back as he used the soul vision of the black goat to glance at the familiar soul approaching the door. Knock, knock. Gently knocking on the door, Emma outside bit her lip, struggling to suppress the incredibly complex emotions in her heart. Her voice trembling softly as she said, "Leon, are you there? I want to talk to you." Chapter 416, 2 Hugs. Debates about why Marquis Golden Oriole had suddenly died were rampant throughout the capital city. Due to the exceptionally complex powers involved behind the scenes and the numerous suspicious aspects, almost no one could ascertain the truth. Yet, when she learned of Leonard's demise, Emma had no doubts or hesitation whatsoever. She immediately identified the killer's, or rather, benefactor's, identity. Leon. Upon knocking on the office door, seeing Leon's demeanor as usual with no change in expression, yet with tears in her eyes, Emma bit her lip and softly greeted him. Good morning." Hearing this very ordinary yet extremely special opening line at this moment, Leon was initially taken aback, then returned a rather brilliant smile to her. "Good morning, Senior Emma." Looking at Leon's calm face, Emma took a deep breath to steady her swirling emotions, then clenched her fists tightly, her voice trembling slightly as she asked, "Have you heard about the Golden Oriole family?" "Yes." Seeing Senior Emma before him, obviously asking what she already knew, Leon chuckled without further pretense, directly saying, "Congratulations. From now on, it's as if the clouds have parted and the fog has cleared." "Thank you. Really, thank you." Confirming her suspicions through Leon's gentle gaze, Emma felt as if the world blurred in an instant. Large, hot tears flowed unchecked from her eyes. Taking a step forward, she gave Leon a substantial hug. Emma buried her face in Leon's shoulder, sobbing freely, and she only stopped when Leon's legs started to go numb. However, after crying her heart out, Emma wiped away her tears and, instead of breaking into a smile, bit her lip and said seriously, "Leon, this can't continue." "Huh?" Surprised, Leon hadn't asked yet, when he felt his palms slightly soften and Senior Emma's voice came through the contact between their hands. The death of someone with a word spirit is a very serious matter. Even though the headquarters has been sealed, investigators from the Central Bureau will arrive within a week. Although Leonard's status isn't high enough for them to bring something at the level of time and space retracing, once they pinpoint the suspects, they will conduct focused investigations on all remarks and actions of those suspected individuals over the past few days using distributed, anomalous objects. For instance, our current conversation, if you had admitted you did it upon seeing me, it would trigger words of admission or unspoken words, directly marking you with the anomalous object they carry. Even if you're extremely careful and haven't confessed your actions to anyone, clear acts of slaughter or acts of coercion would still be marked by that anomalous object. After briefly explaining the Purification Bureau's investigation process, Emma, her eyes filled with worry, reminded him, "Leon, think carefully. Since then until now, have you directly harmed that person's body, forced him to leap into the lake with your words, or confessed the truth to anyone?" No. After clasping Senior Emma's hands in return, Leon, who had specifically inquired about this intelligence before acting, answered confidently, "Everything happened in the world of dreams. I only made a vague sound from over 10 meters away and did nothing else, nor confessed to anyone. Before you came, I merely had a brief chat with the black goat on my desk. But exchanges pertinent to that day happened between souls and wouldn't be detected by anyone. So rest assured, Senior Emma, If I weren't confident about escaping culpability, I wouldn't have acted recklessly. Asterisk, as long as you're confident. But still, be very careful. Asterisk. Seeing that Leon had indeed prepared accordingly, not acting impulsively on a whim, Emma was significantly reassured. She then softly instructed, full of the guilt in her eyes. Asterisk, moreover, if investigators come and unexpectedly find something, suspecting you, then you should candidly admit it was under my orders. Absolutely do not shoulder it alone. With Olivia absent, all matters of the Virgin Branch are temporarily under my charge. Out of personal vendetta, I gave you the relevant orders, and you, trusting your senior, carried out those orders without questioning. This way, we can minimize your liability. Asterisk. Senior Emma, Asterisk, you mustn't refuse. Asterisk. Firmly grasping Leon's hand, Emma blinked her somewhat red eyes, stating with a serious expression, Asterisk. I've already wronged you enough by asking this of you. If things really go south and you're still planning to bear it alone, then I'll turn myself in. At that time, as co-conspirators breaking regulations, both you and I will face internal discipline. But if you claim it was at my behest, at least one of us will survive. Leon, later, I'll issue you a directive order in writing, and you must keep it with you at all times. Understood? Asterisk. Asterisk, speak. Asterisk. All right. Upon seeing Leon's reluctant nod, a smile reappeared on Emma's previously serious face. Feeling the reassuring warmth from her grasp, her heart had never felt so light, and she couldn't help but lightly reproach. Asterisk, Leon. I suddenly remembered. Was it you who taught Ellie to wish for me to spend a whole day with her on her birthday? Asterisk. Yes. Hearing this, Leon couldn't help scratching the back of his head as he nodded, admitting openly, Asterisk. I was worried you'd seek revenge on Leonard overnight after Ellie fell asleep, so I came up with a way to keep Ellie glued to you for a day. Asterisk. Then you went to the Verdant Feather Estate overnight and took care of everything yourself. Didn't you? Even using a child as a pawn. Glancing softly at Leon, Emma bit her lower lip and said, Asterisk, when I was leaving home, Ellie asked me to ask you what you would give her as a gift. I want to see what gift you plan to use to placate her this time. Asterisk. As for the gift, seeing Senior Emma, who was usually gentle and composed, display a rare hint of playfulness, Leon couldn't help but touch his nose, then smiled and replied, Asterisk, give her a body like a normal child, so she won't turn transparent in the sunlight, can attend school like normal, grow up normally, and live a full life. What do you think of this gift? Asterisk. Lost in an expression of unparalleled joy, Leon gripped her hand tightly and explained his findings in detail, then apologetically explained, Asterisk, after locating Ellie's position, I initially intended to bring her back directly, but I was overnight at the bureau, thus shouldn't have appeared at the Verdant Feather Estate, nor should I have taken something from the lake. Plus, with the death of Marquis Golden Oriole, if little Ellie regained her body, it might also draw the investigators' suspicion onto you. That's why I didn't directly. Asterisk. Asterisk, enough. Leon. Enough already. Asterisk. Suddenly releasing Leon's hand, Emma, barely able to control herself, gave him another hug, tears misting her eyes. Asterisk. You've already done so much for Ellie and me. I really don't know how to repay you. Asterisk. Bang. Just as Emma, overjoyed to the point of tears, was about to say something, Leon's office door was suddenly flung open, and a voice brimming with excitement came from outside. Ha! Little Leon. Great news. Covered in yellow mud, with fatigue all over his face, the red-haired director pushed the door open and entered, his expression unusually passionate. Aquarius. You too. Chapter 417. Parting Gift. Seeing Leon tightly embraced by Olivia in the office, seemingly wanting to melt into his body, the expression on the red-haired director's face momentarily froze. She felt something inside her wasn't right. To prevent that damned Aquarius director from meddling with the Watcher's palace, this mother had to descend alone into the realm of the dead on her birthday, squatting by the dirty Yellow Springs River for several days. Besides checking the dead passing through the no-return path, she was watching the big crocodiles baring their teeth. In the end, while this mother was working her ass off down there to protect the world, you two were getting it on in the office? Don't your consciences hurt? Director? You're back just in time. Seeing the red-haired director suddenly break in, Leon couldn't help but feel a surge of delight. The night raid on Verdant Feather Estate seemed tightly sealed. There was nothing that could point back to him, except for one unstable factor, the existence of the Lust Dream Invader. If the director honestly registered this anomalous object and reported the abilities of the Lust Dream Invader, the investigator examining this incident would only have to glance at the capital city's newspapers, know that Leonard appeared to have a nightmare before his death, and it would be easy to connect it back to him. Luckily, the Lust Dream Invader had just been crafted, and it was made by the third-generation director who long resided in the realm of the dead with no prior records. Not even Senior Emma knew the specific abilities. Only the director and Leon were aware, which provided room to maneuver. If the director were willing to go along and conceal the existence of the Lust Dream Invader, or report a false ability, this last point of suspicion would disappear, and both Emma and Leon would truly be safe. As for whether the director would help conceal, you two bastards, dragged into the soul chat by Leon and Emma, and hearing about what had happened in the last couple of days, the red-haired director couldn't help but glare at Leon angrily. You really are. I arranged for you to go down the no-return path with Emma to persuade her to endure for a few more years, not to help her seek revenge. With Emma's abilities, she'd only need to wait a few years to become a branch director. After that, I wouldn't stop her if she wanted revenge. But now, what if you two get discovered? We won't be. Leon shook his head seriously. Before I took action, I had thought of the outcome and even made some checks and balances. Now the only flaw is the existence of the Lust Dream Invader, so I have to help you cover it up and even submit a false report. Huh? The red-haired director glared. You're dragging me down too? That's practically covering up for you, do you realize? Taurus, His Excellency, trusts me so much. Me not reporting you is already. So, Olivia, will you report us? I'll report my ass. On one hand, there's a scumbag who's already dead. On the other, a good friend avenging a woman and a loyal subordinate acting out of righteous indignation. Do I even have a choice? Should I really report you two and bury you with him? Moreover, no matter how the investigator spins it, this case will surely be categorized as a cold case involving an anomalous object. Though not as many people died as in the Ryan family incident, the death circumstances were too bizarre, causing a lot of uproar, impacting badly, and there'll definitely be a note in the year-end review. Truly, the last review ended just days ago, and already we're facing crisis after crisis? Is there any hope left for this year? After giving Leon and Emma a resentful glare, the red-haired director let out an angry huff, then stormed out, slamming the door. Write the report yourself. Damn it. I must owe you all a big one from my past life. This time, it's finally cleared. Upon hearing the red-haired director's words, Leon finally felt completely at ease and couldn't help but look at Emma, who was gazing back at him. The two shared a smile. Leon. Looking at the man who seemed to have a telepathic connection with her, Emma, who had been interrupted by the sudden intrusion of the red-haired director, suddenly felt her ear-lobes heat up. She then actively averted her gaze, lowering her head slightly as she tried to speak tactfully. I thought about it, and Ellie needs. Oh right, I forgot to mention. At this moment, the red-haired director burst through the door again, announcing with a hint of malice in her eyes. The Aquarius director is dead. Really? With his attention drawn back to the director, Leon asked, filled with delight. Director, are you sure? Sure. I saw it with my own eyes, and even exchanged a few blows with him, threw some insults at him through the Death Realm Street lamp's light. After glancing at her best friend, who pursed her lips with a slightly irritated expression, the red-haired director said with a smile. As we guessed, the Aquarius director indeed had a backup plan. Just as he entered the realm of the dead, his soul covered by the Death Realm street lamp started expanding crazily, with most of it squeezing out of the street lamp's range, leaving less than 1/10 restrained. What happened afterward? Then I took action. Curling her bright red hair, the portion of his soul that swelled and spilled out of the street lamp's range was directly shattered by me, irreparable. As for the part within the Death Realm street lamp, it continued rushing towards the depths of the realm of the dead along the no-return path. If his soul were complete, perhaps he could wait until the street lamp's power weakened and struggle free, but with only 1/10 of his soul remaining, he'd likely be sent straight to the end of the realm of the dead, directly dropping off the cliff of the end. He's done for. Oh, right, this is for you. As she spoke, the red-haired director seemed to remember something and tossed over a pair of oddly shaped, semi-transparent gloves. This is made from Aquarius fingers. Technically, the material is a fragment of his soul from his fingers. Ha! It's gross, I know, but it works. Seeing Leon startled, the red-haired director curled her lips. Remember the god-suppressing forked fingers secret technique, specializing in suppressing the true god's body? Aquarius had mastered this secret technique to the extreme, causing even part of his soul to undergo corresponding changes. And you mentioned that no matter how much force you exert, the body of the goddess of fortune remains unscathed. So when I cut apart Aquarius' soul, I deliberately kept the part with his fingers, asking the third-generation old man to make a pair of gloves. If the goddess of fortune senses something amiss and secretly hassles you, just put on these gloves to temporarily suppress the divinity within her body. Even if you can't kill her, you can make her feel some pain. Sigh. Originally, I thought of giving this to you as a thank you gift if you manage to persuade Emma. But now, humph, consider it lent to you for self-defense for now. After settling the goddess of fortune, remember to return it to me. This, looking at the unusually precious souvenir the director had brought back, Leon couldn't help but feel touched. Thank you, director. When we left the third-generation director back then, he was already so mad. To get him to agree to help me craft an anomalous object, you must have endured a lot. Right, director? Not really. The red-haired director waved it off with a smile. The third-generation old man was quite angry initially and wouldn't cooperate at all. But after I asked him a question, he reconsidered reasonably. Oh? What did you ask him? Ha, I said to him. You don't want anyone finding out that Leon's secret smithing techniques were taught by you, right? Chapter 418. First try brings success, second is weaker, third. After listening to the red-haired director's negotiation details, Leon couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. Imagining the red-haired director, who was living quite well, threatening the square-headed old man that if he didn't help, he would spread the word about being his apprentice and ruin his reputation. Leon felt a slight tinge of guilt in his heart. After all, even though the square-headed old man was eccentric and had a foul mouth, he was still contributing to the protection of humanity beyond his death. Using such tactics to threaten him seemed a bit inappropriate. Apologizing inwardly on behalf of the director to the square-headed old man, and memorizing this useful negotiation tactic, Leon reached out to touch the pair of translucent, peculiar gloves. Name: Hand of Screams, Suppression, Resentment, Resurrection. Appearance: a pair of oddly shaped translucent gloves, specially reinforced at the knuckles, made entirely of some translucent, thorny nettle. On closer inspection, one could see countless tiny barbs. Ability: Suppression of Divinity, Resentment True Word, Temporary Resurrection. Cost: requires no power injection. Simply wearing it on the hands activates its effects. However, each time one strikes a target, the tiny barbs inside and outside the gloves penetrate both skins, injecting a large dose of soul toxin capable of suppressing divinity and causing unbearable pain. File: an anomalous object personally forged by the spirit of forging. Materials include thoroughwort nettle growing by the Yellow Springs River, as well as special soul fragments from the Aquarius director of the Purification Bureau. It has a strong suppressive effect on the distribution of divinity within a true God's body. Additionally, due to anger at being disgracefully threatened, the spirit of forging inadvertently chose an incredibly penetrating thorough-wort nettle during material selection. While greatly enhancing the suppression effect, it also inflicts unimaginable pain upon the user and keeps their soul constantly alert and sharp. Upon initial contact without mental preparation, the toxin that seeps into the soul is even enough to momentarily resurrect the dead with pain. Evaluation: 1 punch, 2 screams, 1 yours, 1 mine. Contamination value: 0.1. Reading the Hand of Screams file, emphasizing the part enough to momentarily resurrect the dead with pain. And the evaluation: 1 punch, 2 screams. Leon's mouth couldn't help but twitch hard. Thank you, teacher of the 3rd generation, for your generous gift. From now on, you are my only teacher in secret smithing techniques. No one can stop me from promoting your fame. Carefully storing this item in the mirror world and warning young Ha never to touch it under any circumstances afterward, Leon, in a good mood after hearing the Aquarius' death news, turned to look at Emma beside him and asked with a smile, "Sorry, Senior Emma. I didn't hear clearly earlier. What does Ellie need?" Ellie needs a complete family, especially someone who is particularly good to her, and her mom, to make up for her years of missing fatherly love. Why are you looking at me? Ignoring the red-haired director's look that said, "Why haven't you scrammed yet, bestie?" Completely unaware of being an unwanted presence as a third wheel, she remained boldly in Leon's office, squinting her eyes with a slightly malicious intent, smiling as she urged, "Say it, Emma. Say what you want to say. I also like little Ellie very much, and I'll help with whatever she wants. If you would just scram, that would be of great help to me and Ellie." Emma's earlobes turned unconsciously red, glaring angrily at the red-haired director with a mischievous glimmer in her eyes, wishing she could stab her into a red-haired hedgehog with her intense gaze. But no matter how fierce her gaze was, she couldn't bring herself to say the words that were already at the tip of her tongue. There was no other reason than the fact the age difference between them was nearly 10 years. Even her daughter was almost as old as Leon's siblings. Even though Leon had drunkenly said he didn't mind, if the roles were reversed, it would be like a middle-aged man, once divorced and with a child, proposing to an adolescent girl. Perhaps Olivia could say such things, but Emma really couldn't bring herself to be so thick-skinned. She almost managed to say it the first time because upon suddenly hearing that Ellie could return to normal, her emotions were so agitated that her emotional outbreak temporarily suppressed her rationality. Even after being interrupted by Olivia once, she was able to speak again because of the belief in cherishing those in front of you and wanting to give Ellie a complete family, which barely gave her a courage boost, but was yet again disrupted by Olivia. Once the excitement waned and the boosted courage was forcibly interrupted, it was already incredibly difficult to speak a third time, especially with a well-acquainted friend like her in the room, staring mischievously. How could one possibly speak out? After angrily glaring at the red-haired director several times, which were all deflected without injury, realizing there was no dealing with such a shameless rogue, Emma could only bite her lip and, suppressing the heat on her earlobes and the unsatisfaction in her heart, spoke with a steady voice, "Ellie needs peers and friends her age, as well as some normal kid activities. Can she attend a school with Melanie?" After speaking with some difficulty, Emma, overwhelmed with concern for her daughter, calmed her chaotic thoughts and, slightly worried, continued, "Ellie is quite introverted and hasn't interacted with peers before, nor has she attended school. I'm worried she may not adjust to a foreign environment suddenly. So, if possible, could your siblings look out for her?" "No problem." Filled with thoughts of the Aquarius director's death news, Leon, with a swelling emotion, being utterly oblivious to the dynamics between the director and Senior Emma, patted his chest and agreed heartily to the request, taking it all in stride as he replied, "Let Ellie be in the same class as William. If possible, try to have their seats close together. As for Ellie making friends, even though Melanie's academic performance isn't impressive, she gets along well with her classmates. With the two of them, Ellie will integrate in no time. Thank you. Speaking earnestly but with a hint of reluctance, Emma, unable to endure her bestie's knowing look of 2 parts ripple, 3 parts teasing, and 5 parts intriguing mischief, turned her blushing face away from Leon's and the director's line of sight and somewhat awkwardly pushed open the office door, quickly leaving the room as if for dear life, leaving only a slightly trembling voice of farewell behind. I have something to do and need to leave. After her hurried departure, the seemingly calm 2 remaining in the room simultaneously relaxed their expressions. Just as Leon was about to ask about the details of the Aquarius director's death, contemplating whether there were any doubtful points, he felt a slight tug at his neckline, and a beautiful yet angry with a smile face thrust close to him. 3 days, huh? Having seized Leon's collar, the red-haired director, who had been suppressing for a while, gritted her teeth, wearing a half-smile, half-grimace as she questioned. I was only gone for 3 days. You already managed to drive away my Emma? Do you have to be such an efficient jerk? Chapter 419. Interrogations and Suspicions. Asterisk, what does your Emma mean? Could it be that there's something between the 2 of you? Asterisk. What are you thinking about? Leon saw the strange look in the red-haired director's eyes and guessed his thoughts. Quickly letting go of his collar, the director said with annoyance, Emma and I are friends. The best of friends. Other than that, she's also my biggest creditor and that's all there is. Oh. Oh, what? Oh. Seeing Leon's expression of sudden realization and recalling the widespread Marquis Lake incident, the red-haired director became angry and said with displeasure, You bastard. You're a genius at playing dumb. And about that, everything will be fine with William and Melanie's help. I scoff. Emma almost wrote what she wants on her face, and I don't believe you couldn't see what she was trying to say. Hurry up. Give me a straight answer. What do you really think of Emma? And that female police officer from the Secret Investigation Bureau who always has lunch with you, Princess Veronica, who is nominally betrothed to you. What do you plan to do about all this? It seems the master performer doesn't work well on the director either. Leon scratched his head and replied with a slightly awkward smile. Isha and I are just friends, the kind that didn't know each other until we fought. And as for the princess, I've always wanted to break off the engagement, but she keeps talking me out of it. 3 times it happened and still no success. And the reason I pretended not to understand earlier was mainly because of the princess. After all, regardless of how things actually are, there really is an engagement between us. If it's not sorted out first, well, it just doesn't seem right. Goodness, I didn't expect you to be so compatible with anomalous demons, but morally upright in private. Recognizing Leon's expression and confirming that he wasn't lying, the red-haired director's demeanor softened slightly. He narrowed his eyes and said, I don't care what your final decision is, but as Emma's best friend, you need to handle this properly. At least don't hurt her again. Or don't blame me for causing you trouble. Ah, well, even though I don't want to hurt Senior Emma, isn't this an abuse of power on your part and a personal vendetta? That's right. So what? If you have a problem, go complain to headquarters. Asterisk, not to mention whether complaining would work. Headquarters is over 70,000 kilometers from the surface. Could I even get there? Asterisk. After seeing Leon's speechless look, the director, having vented quite a bit of anger, hesitated briefly before saying in a low voice, Also, honestly, I don't really want you and Emma to be together. Ah? Upon hearing this, Leon was a bit bewildered, and his mind involuntarily recalled his deep bonds with the director, along with that warm and passionate kiss in the realm of the dead. Asterisk, did this mean? Hiss, does the director also? Could I actually be some unparalleled handsome guy? Asterisk. Emma's connection to the realm of the dead is actually much closer than you imagine, and it's not just a simple sin of the precious flower. For years, she's the only cleaner able to enter and exit the realm of the dead freely and sign a contract with the true god of the dead. Even little Ellie has some issues. The red-haired director said with a furrowed brow. Leon, I won't lie to you, when the Bauhinia family incident occurred, I paid special attention to the situation there. Did you know? If Emma hadn't entrusted Ellie to someone else and accidentally escaped from the realm of the dead, the members of the Bauhinia family who died under that tree would have numbered exactly 999, and that number really stuck in my mind. What's the matter with you? Why aren't you speaking? Asterisk, because I just had the wild idea that, maybe, you want to compete with Senior Emma for me. How could I admit that out loud? Asterisk, using the effect of the master performer to suppress the strong sense of shame that surged in his heart. Leon took a deep breath and replied with a straight face. I just didn't expect there to be more to the story. But director, whether it's Senior Emma's sin of the precious flower or little Ellie's jewel flower's woe, I've already encountered them, and I didn't see any suspicious records. Could you be overthinking it? I shouldn't be. The red-haired director shook his head and said, Leon, remember, as a cleaner, you must learn to rely on your ability. But you cannot believe only in your ability. I carefully compared it, and the information your ability reveals is mostly just related to the anomalous objects themselves, rarely mentioning anything beyond them, so it can only be used for reference, not as decisive judgment criteria. For instance, let me ask you, since it was Emma's departure from the realm of the dead that led to the sin of the precious flower emerging, but with the three-headed dog guarding the gate of the realm of the dead, how did she get past the gate guarded by that dog? Did your ability say anything? Well, no, it didn't. Hearing this, Leon was taken aback, his brows furrowing as well. But I've seen in other anomalous object descriptions, the canine deity is mostly asleep while guarding the gate, and occasionally leaves briefly to hunt. Could it be pure coincidence? Why did coincidence fall on Emma? The red-haired director said seriously, why did that dog leave early or late? But when 999 souls, sharing the same bloodline and cause of death, each with similar regrets and grievances, gathered as one, that's when it left. Moreover, the number 999 is very intriguing. At this point, the red-haired director couldn't help but sigh. I reviewed the dossiers, and about 1,104 Bauhinia members were incarcerated before execution. Yet in the half-month leading up to the execution, a series of exactly 105 people died, leaving just 999. Numbers like 999, 7, 13, 6, 3, and 111 are often associated with rituals in occultism and shouldn't be ignored. In particular, 999 is related to descent. Considering this deliberately arranged number, along with Emma's obviously overly close ties with the realm of the dead, it's hard not to overthink it. Especially considering the Bauhinia family's demise coincided with the Ice Plains nation's invasion, and the ensuing war brought a lot of deaths, which would be the perfect nourishment for an entity descending from the realm of the dead. Asterisk, considering it this way, is not impossible. Asterisk. After reflecting on the Bauhinia family's plight, Leon nodded gravely. If one didn't delve too deeply, the Bauhinia family tragedy seemed to be the result of Leonard's ambition with no orchestrator behind the scenes, but it all felt a bit too coincidental. If someone else had been in charge of the trade route, if the Bauhinia family had received the information in time, if the information had been gathered by someone other than Leonard, or if the royal family had tried negotiating before taking action, the outcome could have been different each time. But each result was the worst one. Asterisk. So, was the Bauhinia family's downfall really as simple as it seemed? Asterisk. Director. Calling out to the red-haired director, Leon said with a furrowed brow, did you share these suspicions with Senior Emma? What could I say? The red-haired director replied with a sigh of exasperation. Even setting aside the lack of evidence, would I tell her that a possible overlord of the dead realm is secretly manipulating events, using her family's lives for a ritual? As things stand now, she's still got some hope for revenge. If I shared my suspicions, letting her know that the Bauhinia incident might involve an overlord of the dead realm, her chances of finding joy in this life might vanish. Besides, although the Marquis Goldcrest was a complete bastard, he did take Ellie away and didn't let her die directly beneath the red cedar. Maybe that's why the descent ritual was disrupted. So if my guess is correct and a dead realm overlord sought to descend, he might actually have saved most of the capital city. Chapter 420. The Incarnate Doe. So, does this mean I've been repaying kindness with vengeance? After hearing the red-haired director's words, Leon couldn't help but look a bit embarrassed. If things were really like that, perhaps Leon Lane would have ceased to exist 6 years ago, and he himself wouldn't exist now. So, even though that Leonard was a complete jerk by disrupting the summoning ritual, he was, theoretically, indeed the savior of more than half of the capital city's residents, including Leon himself. By that calculation, he had really done something wrong, and he ought to thank him before killing him. Director. After inwardly thanking Leonard, Leon asked with slight hesitation in his eyes, "By your guess, which one of the overlords of the Dead Realm was trying to descend 6 years ago?" "Why are you asking this?" The red-haired director squinted his eyes upon hearing this, and asked warily, "You're not planning to take on the overlords of the Dead Realm like you did this time, are you?" "How could I?" Leon uttered speechlessly. "Those are overlords who've lived for who knows how many years in the Dead Realm. I'm just a little third-class cleanser. How could I possibly have thoughts about such entities? I'm just asking to have a general idea." "You'd better keep it that way." The red-haired director snorted at his words, then frowned and warned, "If it's someone like the Goddess of Fortune, then eliminating them doesn't cause much of an issue, but the overlords of the Dead Realm are different. Beings worthy of the title Overlord of an entire realm provide indispensable help for the normal functioning of the world. For example, the Road of No Return, which guides dead souls back to the world, was created by the first deceased of the Dead Realm. It's due to this accomplishment that he became one of the overlords of the Dead Realm. Among the other overlords, Grandma Crow-Eye created the Nest of Crows of Death Report, and the Mortician's Corridor for announcing death. Wailing Puppet established the City of Regret and Ghostly Mire. Faceless Man created the Black and White Bridge and, after briefly explaining the titles and achievements of several overlords of the Dead Realm, the red-haired director said with a cold expression, "As for the one who attempted to descend 6 years ago, it was likely the Beast of Flesh among the overlords of the Dead Realm. The locations where Emma stayed, such as Burial Garment Mirror Lake, and the ones I took you through like Corpse Soil Black Forest and Baigu Palace, were all created by it. That overlord of the Dead Realm is responsible for stripping the false flesh attire from the deceased after they come to terms with their deaths, allowing them to become pure, naked souls, significantly contributing to the return of the souls of the dead to the world. So we cannot truly eliminate it. Even if it had successfully descended 6 years ago and caused significant deaths in the capital city, the Bureau could only force it back to the Dead Realm and make it enter slumber. We couldn't actually kill it. Otherwise, the 3 locations it created would quickly collapse, and before new corresponding rules are generated, a large number of dead souls would remain stuck on the Road of No Return, unable to return to the world, causing chaos in the operations of the Dead Realm. "So I can't avenge Senior Emma then?" Leon asked a bit unwillingly upon hearing this. "If a large number of dead souls are stranded, what would happen? The problem would be severe." The red-haired director sighed and said, "When the third-generation director was still alive, the Bureau once eliminated an overlord of the Dead Realm, which caused the Oblivion Spirit Valley, responsible for erasing the excess intelligence of the dead, to collapse. Consequently, a large number of souls were stuck in front of the City of Regret. For the following 15 years, even without a large-scale war, the number of new souls born worldwide dropped by about 1/20th, without even considering the further decreasing trend. With no other choice, the Bureau had to station a large number of cleaners permanently in the Dead Realm, burying those overly intelligent souls to let them decompose unconsciously, until new rules were formed. That place became known as the Sage's Cemetery, and the coffin of the third-generation director is buried there. Asterisk, what a mess. So you really did it once, huh? Asterisk. Listening to the red-haired director recount the mess the Purification Bureau got into in the past, Leon couldn't help but hold his forehead, lamenting how this world felt like a shoddy troop, and that every seemingly absurd regulation probably meant a huge accident had occurred behind it once, So now you understand why I didn't want to tell Emma the truth, right? The red-haired director said helplessly. I understand how you feel, but many things in this world are like this, destined never to have a perfect ending. For Emma, perhaps this is the best outcome now. Sigh. Anyway, if you're really determined to have something happen with Emma, I definitely won't stop you. But the situation with her and Ellie is really too special, and you have to be mentally prepared. Especially Ellie, I suspect she was the chosen vessel for the beast of flesh to descend into back then. Although the descent ritual was interrupted, once she recovers her body, even if that beast can't descend through her, it might seize the opportunity to do something. These damn guys never end. You finish one and another comes up the very next moment. If you're even slightly negligent, they'll sneak into the house like rats and wreak havoc. It's just exasperating. Oh right, I'm planning to grab a drink after work. You in? Ha! Still pondering with a solemn expression, Leon was caught off guard by the director's abrupt shift in topic, and upon realizing what she was talking about, his face fell instantly, and he shook his head without hesitation. No way! I've quit drinking. Besides, director, you should also drink less. Don't you remember what you promised Taurus His Excellency? Test K. No fun. The kind invitation to relax was immediately met with Leon's stern refusal along with a serious reminder, causing the red-haired director to purse her lips. Then I'll go by myself. Really? I've been down there squatting for several days, even had a big fight with Aquarius. Wouldn't you call that hard work? I just want to have a little relaxation. Is that too much? It's not about not relaxing, but drinking really causes trouble. Still preoccupied with the beast of flesh's conspiracy, Leon couldn't help but remind her. When you're sober, your abilities are unquestionably impeccable, but when you're drunk, you're utterly full of flaws. If someone were to invade while you're passed out, then here comes the question. I am indeed easy to handle when passed out drunk. But how would they know if I'm drunk or not? Question mark. The red-haired director, already walking to the door, turned back and said with a sly smile, remember, when someone has a weakness that everyone knows about, you better be careful. Giving Leon a meaningful look, she continued with a smile as Leon watched, somewhat surprised. An individual who is flawless at all times cannot remain vigilant at all times. Even if they're careful, there's always a chance of slipping up. But someone who is flawless when sober and full of faults when drunk, any sane adversary will choose to make their move when she's drunk. Do you get what I'm saying? Asterisk. So, that means just guarding carefully when drunk and being slightly more relaxed usually? And, are you perhaps not actually drunk every time? Mostly fishing all along? Asterisk. Seeing Leon, with eyes slightly widened in disbelief, the red-haired director couldn't help but smile proudly and blink her charming fox-like eyes. Learn from this little lion. Though you have good talent, when it comes to mind games with your opponents, you are still too green, indeed.